the city council meeting, and please rise for the pledge of allegiance.
I'll talk to Juan.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
No, I was not.
We have one proclamation tonight, and our Water Department Director, Steve Schoaf, is, yes, he is here. He is here to receive and talk about this proclamation, and we have to just spend a moment thinking about Steve, because he's told us he's going to retire soon. So we need to relish every opportunity.
So drink up, people.
Fill your moments.
This is a proclamation in honor of National Drinking Water Week. Very important topic here in Asheville. Whereas water is our most valuable natural resource, and we are all stewards of the water infrastructure upon which future generations depend. And whereas only tap water delivers public health protection, fire protection, support for our economy, and the quality of life we enjoy. And whereas any measure of a successful society, low mortality rates, economic growth and diversity, productivity, and public safety are in some way related to access to safe water. And whereas the city of Asheville produces over 7.2 billion gallons of safe drinking water annually, and whereas the city of Asheville operates a regional water system in Buncombe and Henderson counties serving 125,000 people, in addition to providing wholesale water for water systems in Black Mountain, Biltmore Forest, and Woodfin. And whereas the Water Resources Department provides safe drinking water and service to our customers through the dedicated staff of the customer service, water production, meter services, water maintenance, water engineering, and water administration divisions. Now therefore, I, Esther Manheimer, Mayor of the City of Asheville, do hereby proclaim May 3rd through 9th as National Drinking Water Week in the City of Asheville, and ask that each citizen of our community help protect our source waters from pollution, to practice water conservation, and to become involved in local water issues by getting to know their water. All right. Would you like to say a few words?
Don't have a speech, but I want to express our gratitude for the support of the council. The job would be much more difficult without your support, and we really appreciate it. That support runs through everything from technical issues to personnel issues. We have a wonderful resource in our watersheds and the fine, high-quality water that we have as our source water. So it makes our jobs enjoyable, it makes our jobs interesting, and we certainly appreciate this community and their support for what we do. Thank you.
All right, turning to the consent agenda, is there any item on the consent agenda that anyone has a question about or would like to have considered separately?
Yes. B, C, and H.
You want them considered separately?
Yeah, or just talk about them.
Talk about them?
Or-
Talk about them. Let's talk about them. Okay, so resolution setting a public hearing on May 12th, 2015 to consider an economic development incentive grant to support Polylinks, Inc. Okay, and C, similarly, it's a resolution setting the public hearing for High Wire Brewing expansion. And then the other one is unrelated, it's not a.
Right.
Right, okay. So did you have a question about B or C?
Just my comment or question is that I would like to see, when it comes forward to, in front of the public hearing, to look at the range of wages. Right now, it's an average wage, and I think it's important that we know that the minimum wage is at least a living wage. So planning staff, economic development staff has said they would do that, but make the comment.
I think you, do your mic a little closer to your, just in case, sir. And then the other one was H?
Yes.
And ordinance to rescind the elimination of the downtown fare-free zone and refer the action to the Multimodal Transportation Commission for further discussion. Do you want to explain this one? What's going on here?
Okay,
I'm turning it back on you.
just say, wait a minute, I'm the one asking questions now. So in this circumstance, the downtown fare-free zone, if people understand, there are areas basically in the downtown area that when you enter it, you don't pay a fare, and then when you leave it, you are supposed to pay a fare. And the Transportation Department had asked that fare-free zone be eliminated because, really for operational kind of issues, the drivers are having a hard time managing it. So originally, the Finance Committee agreed that the fare-free zone be eliminated. Unfortunately, the Transit Committee of the Multimodal Transportation Commission didn't feel like they had enough time to study it and had asked to look at it further. So I think, given all of this, that we definitely agree that it should go back to the Multimodal and the Transit Committee. And so I completely agree with that. But I also note that a year ago, the city looked at adjusting the fares for transit, and that got deferred. I don't believe it was ever discussed again or in the current year. So I would just ask that in this coming year, that the Transportation Department, in conjunction with the Transit Committee and the Multimodal Commission, really relook at all of our transit fares in totality and come back with some sort of report or recommendation on the fares. So,
Might I also add to that? I think that's a great suggestion, and one that we should make sure we make a priority in the coming year. I would like to commit to the council that we will be certain to review those in plenty of time to make sure that we go to the Transit Committee, Multimodal Transportation Committee, and have all those comments well communicated and available to Council's Finance Committee and then the full council when it comes forward. I'd like to avoid the surprises in the future.
thank you.
Any other item anyone has a question about? How about a motion?
I'd make that motion to accept the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Is there anyone wishing to comment on the adoption of the consent agenda? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. We've gotten through the consent agenda. We have one item under presentation and reports. That's me. This is the legislative update. This is the week of crossover in the legislature, and we are seeing things moving fast and furiously down in Raleigh. Not every bill is subject to crossover, but if it is subject to crossover, it needs to cross from the House to the Senate or the Senate to the House by the deadline, which I believe is to this week. Thursday, thank you. Or the bill will be considered dead, although I don't think anything's ever really dead in the legislature. So there's always a way to bring it back to life. So we're seeing a lot of legislation swirling. It's been a lot to handle for our legislative liaison down there, Jack Kazort, and Alex Carmichael on our staff here in Asheville is monitoring it, and the Metro mayors and the League of Municipalities are also trying to keep us updated on legislation that affects cities. We're watching House Bill 903, which is a bill that would give counties and cities flexibility to impose a quarter-cent sales tax. I think for counties, they already have the quarter-cent sales tax, but it would expand what they could use it for. Cities don't even have this tool yet, so that bill, though, is, I don't believe, subject to crossover. We also saw House Bill 875 get a no vote in committee. It was a bill that would have forced cities to receive county commission approval for condemnation or even acquisition of land anywhere in the county, even if it was inside the city limit. Would have been a very challenging law to comply with for projects like the River Arts redevelopment project, for example. We're still also monitoring bills like the historic preservation tax credit. We're looking to see if anything gets introduced on the privilege license tax, which is set to go away by legislation that was enacted last session. We hear rumors that we might see something this session, although nothing has popped up yet. And then we're still very closely monitoring any sales tax redistribution legislation. There are a couple of bills out there now. Buncombe County is very vulnerable to the tax redistribution legislation that's been introduced, disproportionately so as compared to other counties across the state essentially because of our tourism economy and so much sales tax generated within the county. So we're carefully monitoring that. Very difficult situation because we're also in the budgeting process, as you know, so there's a lot of balls in the air, a lot of considerations, and we're not able to know for sure at this point what the final impact will be on our budget that we need to adopt to be in place by July 1. So I will be going down to Raleigh tomorrow with the Metro mayors. We'll be meeting with various folks in leadership positions in the legislature, and we'll be getting together at the governor's mansion tomorrow night for a reception with legislators and the governor and some of his cabinet members. So hopefully I'll have a little bit better feel after that trip. Any questions? Anyone else have some legislation that they're watching for? No? It's enough? Enough's enough. All right. Moving on, that was our only item under presentation and reports. We now have the public hearing portion of our agenda. If you're here for a public hearing, you can, when it's time, when we open up the public hearing, you'll have 3 minutes to speak, but we'll begin by hearing from staff. There is a little bit of a change in the order on a couple of these items, but not the first item. So, item A, a public hearing to consider an amendment to the signage plan for Asheville outlets located at 800 Brevard Road, Asheville, North Carolina, and Julia Fields is here to present this item.
Scared me for a minute there. I thought you were going to move me to the end. Mayor Mannheimer, members of council, in April of last year, you'll recall that the Asheville City Council approved a master signage plan for the soon-to-be-open Asheville Outlets development located at 800 Brevard Road. The signage package that was approved at that time, which you see here, included provisions for freestanding identification signs. There were 5 signs approved with that plan, attached identification sign, which was to be based on, and you can see the red lines here, the linear footage of the exterior facade of the center, banners for building facades and parking lots, light poles, a certain number were approved at that time, vehicular direction signs to assist folks when they're maneuvering through the parking lots, parking area location signs to help you find your car after you've been shopping, and service door identity signs for deliveries. Since that time, the retail center has been expanded and now includes, and you can see at that time, the Dillards and the old Belk department store properties were not included as part of the center. Since that time, the center has been expanded to include the property, which was formerly the Belk department store. And that adds 9 acres to the development to create a total development of approximately 69 acres. The sign package amendment that's before you basically just adds that additional area, the one that you see bubbled here, to the sign package that was approved previously. There are no additional freestanding or banner signs requested. Basically, what you're doing here is adding, you'll see, again, the red line has been expanded, so that increases the amount of exterior facade space and therefore increases the amount of attached signage that could be provided. So basically, that's all. It's a very simple amendment. And as before, staff would recommend, if you approve this, as a condition that anything that's not addressed in the sign package meet City of Asheville standards. The developer is here. I think they're going to be here through the grand opening this week, and I'm sure they'll be happy to answer any questions, and I will as well.
Does a representative from the developer wish to speak, or no? Not mandatory.
I'm not going to say much, Mayor, members of council, but I do want to say how proud I am to have been associated with this project because it's opening this week. Not only is it going to be a great retail experience for the people who live in our area, but also for our visitors. And it also is employing literally hundreds of new jobs out there. So I think it's one of the great projects I've seen here in Asheville in some time, and I think everybody's going to enjoy it.
Thank you.
Thank you, and Tom Carabine and his daughter are here in case you have any questions. Thank you.
Any questions before I open the public hearing? Anything you need clarified? Nope. All right. I'll open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this item? This is the time. All right, I'll close the public hearing. Any other questions, comments, or a motion?
Mayor, I move to approve the amendment to the signage plan for the Asheville Outlets project located at 800 Brevard Road, subject to the condition recommended by staff.
Second, and Mayor, you're going to be out of town the rest of the week, and I have the honor of going to the ribbon cutting this coming Friday morning, and I'm debating about whether I should take my credit cards with me or leave them at home because the merchandise will be very fresh across the entire campus. But anyway, congratulations. It's an exciting moment for the community to have our first outlet.
I think you should bring your wife.
Could be.
Right.
My only comment would be that we have sign rules, and the sign rules should apply equally to everyone. I voted against the exemption a year ago, and I will vote against this one. We have sign laws, and everyone should be made to fit within those laws. A small business has to, a mall should have to.
Anyone else? All right, we ready? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. And congratulations. All right, I see Jeff Stottinger. Items B and C will be handled by Mr. Stottinger, is going to make his way forward. We are switching B and C, although I'm not sure why, but anyway, he's handling both. So the first item is a public hearing to consider the 2015-2019 Consolidated Plan for Community Development Block Grant and Home Investment Partnership Act funds, with a resolution approving the city's Consolidated Strategic Housing and Community Development Plan for 2015 through 2019. Do you want to present both of these at the same time?
No, thanks,
Okay,
Mayor.
so we'll do C first. All right.
Okay.
Okay, let's do C first.
Great, thank you, Mayor, and council members for the opportunity to come to present the consolidated plan. The reason that they're not presented together and the consolidated plan is presented first and the public hearing is held first, and hopefully your action happens first, is that all of the plans from this year and for the next 5 years flow from the consolidated plan. So approving the consolidated plan first, or at least taking some action on it, is a prerequisite before approving the annual action plan. So I'm glad to be here. We're now at the end of the 5-year plan that you adopted back in 2010. And we're now looking at adopting a new consolidated plan for the year that begins July 2015. And that's where we're at today. First of all, just to briefly go through this for you, what I'm going to do is just briefly tell you about the process and the requirements, and then very, very briefly summarize the plan's goals and deliverables. The plan is a HUD requirement. Community Development Block Grant funds and home funds flow to the City of Asheville from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. And the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development requires cities that receive these funds to establish the priorities for funding, their strategies, and measurable targets in the areas of affordable housing, homelessness, other special housing needs, and non-housing community development needs. And that's what we're doing through this process. Let's just do it that way. The Community Development Block Grant Program, or known as CDBG, is for activities in Asheville only. Asheville is a Community Development Block Grant entitlement city. By virtue of our size and composition, we receive funds every year for community development from the Community Development Block Grant Program. And it has three primary purposes: to provide safe, affordable housing, to create new economic opportunities and suitable living environments. The Community Development Block Grant Program must primarily benefit low and moderate income persons. The Federal Home Program covers a 4-county area: Buncombe County, Henderson, Madison, and Transylvania counties, including the city of Asheville. And this is the federal government's current low-income housing production program. Must assist households earning 80% or less of median income, and is not for economic development, social services, or public facilities. It is for housing only. The city of Asheville acts as what is known as a participating jurisdiction and manages the program on behalf of a consortium. The consortium is represented by appointed persons from about 14 member governments, including each of those 4 counties in the city of Asheville. Councilman Smith chairs the consortium board. The consolidated plan process involved the elements that you see up on the board right now. And I'm going to go through each one of them very briefly to tell you how we did this. We began this process in December, and the process concludes, as you'll see in the timeline later, with the submittal of any approval of the plan by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. So we begin with public input. And this year we had what we feel to be a very successful public engagement process. We had 7 public forums, at least 1 in each county, 10 focus groups, and 3 public hearings. This is the 3rd of those public hearings. 323 persons from the general public and more than 50 agencies representing those communities attended and participated in the public process in one form or another. We also did an online survey through SurveyMonkey, as well as bringing paper copies to all of these public engagement events. And we had over 550 online surveys completed. In the consolidated plan draft, which is on the City of Asheville's website on the Community Development page under Plans and Reports, you'll see a very exhaustive review of all those public comments and then summarized comments as well. We also commissioned a housing needs assessment. Bowen National Research of Ohio performed that assessment for us. And I have made a separate presentation on that to this City Council, and some of you had the opportunity to hear Bowen make that presentation himself. That was presented back in January and February. Very briefly, we see that through the 4-county area, we have 27,000 cost-burdened renter households and 45,000 cost-burdened owner households. In fact, 75% of households earning less than 30% of median income region-wide are paying more than 30% of their incomes for rent, and 50% are paying more than 50% of their incomes for rent. 45,000 owners are cost-burdened, meaning, again, they're paying more than 30% of their income, gross income, for their mortgage, interest, principal, and taxes. There is a owner supply deficit of about 6,600 units. The greatest supply gap throughout the region is quite clearly affordable rental housing for households earning 80% or less of median income. We did engage stakeholders quite specifically, and those stakeholder engagement included 10 focus groups, which were getting very, very specific input on affordable housing, public services, and economic development. Across the sectors, whether it was economic development, public services, or affordable housing, and across the citizen comment, affordable housing was recognized as the greatest need throughout the 4-county region. We also had the opportunity for individual comment, and we note that there was special participation this year as opposed to 5 years ago, with attention on the needs of families with children, on persons with mental and developmental disabilities, and on victims of domestic violence. Now we look at the resources that are anticipated to be available over the 5-year term. So we anticipate receiving roughly $5.5 million of community development block grant funds and $5 million of home funds over the next 5 years. I will tell you that that assumes level funding. And in the past 5 years, these programs have been buffeted by changes in funding Our home program, for example, had roughly 1.5 million available 5 years ago, and this year our allocation was about $850,000. We make up some of that difference through income that comes back to the city from old programs where loans were made, particularly for housing rehabilitation, and that helps support activities today. But I don't know if we're asked to make the assumption of level funding, of course, from the folks who tell us how to do these kinds of things. I don't know if that's a reasonable expectation or not. One of the really important things to know about both CDBG and home is that these are not sufficient to fund projects all by themselves, but they significantly leverage other funds, both public and private. CDBG, 3-to-1, 3 private funds provided for every $1 of CDBG funds, and in the home program, generally $10 dollars of other sources for every $1 of home funds invested in affordable housing. Through this process, priorities have been established, and these priorities have been reviewed and recommended both by the Home Consortium Board and by the Housing and Community Development Committee. I'm going to review them. Now, this is an amalgam of all the priorities. They're very similar across the 4 counties. Some rise a little higher than others depending on the nature of the issues in those counties. But I think we can fairly safely say that these priorities are shared among the counties and by the city of Asheville. That the highest priorities for new rental housing for households earning less than 60% of median income. That special needs housing, including serving the homeless population, is a second high priority. Promoting home ownership for low-income households has risen in the priority queue from 5 years ago as credit loosens and more families become possible homeowners and have the opportunity to do so. Preserving existing housing is very important, particularly enabling special needs households to remain in their homes. And very much important is to coordinate housing development with transportation as we try to look at housing and transportation costs is very related to a household's ability to live comfortably and within their means. The following priorities for economic development, public facilities, and public priorities public services priorities apply only to the city of Asheville. These are relevant to the Community Development Block Grant Program. The economic development priorities is first to create sustainable jobs for low-income persons. Second, to provide job training and placement so that those low-income persons can access jobs that are being created in the community. Third, to support the startup and growth of small micro businesses. Fourth, to support services necessary for employment. That could include childcare. And finally, to improve food security and healthy food availability in our community. The public facility priorities are to develop multimodal transportation, to increase access to jobs and affordable housing, and develop and improve community centers, again, specifically to increase access and readiness for work and access for affordable housing. The public services priorities proposed are services that support affordable housing and jobs. This could be financial counseling, for example, that supports access to affordable housing, to end homelessness, to provide the services that will help persons with disabilities, including mental and developmental disabilities, access housing and youth services. Goals have been established and proposed to you again by the consortium and the HCD committee. These are goals, by the way, that relate specifically to the use of community development block grant and home funds. You are well aware that we are working on, and the HCD committee has reviewed goals more specifically for the city of Asheville, and with the wide variety of resources that we have available. These are specific to community development block grant funds and homes, and are consortium-wide. And you can see that new construction for rental has the greatest 5-year target that we will see 500 units supported with CDBG and home funds over the next 5 years. That we would help persons who are homeless achieve permanent housing, and that would be 430 households that would be assisted over that 5-year term. that new construction or rehab for home ownership would assist 140 households during that period, that home ownership assistance primarily in the form of down payment assistance would assist 50 households, that the rehabilitation or repair of owner-occupied units, and this is generally emergency repairs, would help 25 households remain in their home during that 5-year period, and that rental units could also be repaired or rehabilitated to the tune of 25. By the way, these are goals and general guidelines. They can change over the 5-year period, but this is what we put out there as the deliverables that we will measure the effectiveness of our program by over a 5-year period. The non-housing targets specific to the city of Asheville look at the other economic development, public facilities, and public services activities. So you can see, for example, that we're looking at creating 200 jobs, or at least those jobs being assisted by community development funds. That 250 persons would have job training and placement during this time frame. That we would assist in 100 persons either through jobs created or retained through microenterprise during that time. And that we would have 3 projects during that time that would relate to food security and access. That we would see 2 community center improvement projects and 2 multimodal transportation projects during that time. A little hard to know how many persons that these would assist, because they could literally assist thousands of persons at a time depending on their location. And that public services, that we would see services directly supporting access to affordable housing, assisting 500 persons, supporting access to employment, 100 persons, supporting access for housing for persons with disabilities for 100 persons, assisting 2,000 persons with homeless services and 200 persons in youth services during the next 5 years, beginning in the awards that you'll be reviewing later today. The schedule would be that the City Council is the adopting organization for the consolidated plan. The other consortium members get to weigh in through their board, but you are the legally responsible authority for this action. Once you have approved the plan, the staff completes that plan in IDIS, and if you've been going to our website, you know that we're updating that information almost daily as we work through that online process this time to bring all the information to bear that must be included in that plan. We need to submit that plan to HUD by May 15th, and HUD has 45 days to review the plan. Your new home and CDBG grants are guided by that. I will note that if conditions change in our consortium or in our community, that plan can be amended. So that is the conclusion of my presentation. I'm glad to answer any questions you have either now or as a result of the public hearing. Thanks again for the opportunity to present this.
Any questions? All right, we'll open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this item, this is your opportunity to do so.
Good afternoon, Mayor and City Council. I'm Greg Bourne with Children First Communities and Schools of Buncombe County. And first of all, I'd like to thank Jeff Stoudinger and the staff for all their hard work on putting the consolidated plan together. And I would also like to thank you for the leadership you've shown on issues around affordable housing. This is, as you know, a crisis issue and the important one that we need to address with bold and creative ideas for public-private partnership. I just want to say Children First Communities and Schools has been part of some of these conversations and has raised up the issue of prioritizing the needs for families who have children in the household, for both in the consolidated plan as well as in other programs that City Council and funding sources that you have available to you. We know that investing in children is a long-term proposition for our community's viability and future. And we know that the stress of homelessness, as well as the stress of being in unsafe or not very stable housing, can impact children's health and educational outcomes for years to come. So we're pleased to see that this consolidated plan does specifically identify single-headed households with children for work with CDBG and home. We also know that children with families run through a lot of the priorities in this, and we are glad that you have the foresight to talk about issues around child care as well as looking at families under 60% of median family income. Those are key areas that we need to address going forward. So I thank you for that work, and we look forward to seeing what kind of opportunities and success we can have as a community to address this issue. Thank you for your time.
Anyone else? All right, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Do I have any questions, comments, or a motion?
Mayor, could I just say a couple words about, I just really want to thank Jeff and his staff for putting together a really solid plan that HUD's going to be able to approve and that's going to guide the spending of these dollars over the period of the next 5 years. This plan does reflect the community need, but there will not be nearly enough money to meet all of these needs as a result of this fund. However, thousands of people will be helped as a result of these dollars, and these priorities can help us guide where that's going to go. I'm also really grateful to everybody who participated in the public process. I think it was the best one we've done yet, and grateful for everyone who showed up and chimed in, and you can see that public participation reflected in this document. The housing crisis is here, and we're in the midst of it, and this is one of the pieces that's going to be able to help us make some headway into it. But as Jeff pointed out, we have seen a dwindling amount of money coming from the federal government to address these needs. We have also seen a dwindling interest among some of our state legislators in addressing some of the needs that are reflected here. So we have dwindling resources for growing needs. So I just want to throw that out there. I'm very proud of the work that we've done here, however, and I'd make a motion to approve this document.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Anyone else have a question, comment? Nope. All right, yes, no? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, now we're going up to item B. Jeff, you're going to do that one as well, I assume. This is, it's going to be, okay, a public hearing it's a public hearing regarding the proposed consolidated action plan for fiscal year 2015-16, which sets out the proposed use of federal community development block grant and Home Investment Partnership Act funds for the coming fiscal year. We'll be considering a resolution authorizing submission of the city's consolidated annual plan for 2015-16 to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development.
Okay. Mayor, members of City Council, we're grateful you just approved the consolidated plan because now you can approve how we're going to implement the first year of that plan, we hope. So this is the first time I've used this thing.
Yeah, don't look at the screen, well, I don't know what happens.
Okay. So for 15-16, so this is the funding for the first year of the consolidated plan that you just approved, and we actually know that this is the funding that we have to distribute. HUD has already told us that this is what we have. So we have just over $1 million for community development block grant funds, and these are the agencies that the HCD committee is recommending that you fund. There are 18 projects this year that are being forwarded for funding around affordable housing, economic development, and public services are all included in the community development block grant funds. For the home program, and this is for the four-county region, just over $1 million to distribute in that pot of money as well. There are 8 home programs that are being recommended for funding. All of these applications for funding do have to be consistent with the priorities that were just approved in the consolidated plan, and they are. All of these applications that have been forwarded to you are consistent with those priorities and meet the eligibility requirements for those activities. The home recommendation comes to you from the Asheville Regional Housing Consortium, chaired by Councilman Smith, and the HCD Committee for the Community Development Block Grant Funding. Just a couple of numbers to see. Assuming that the other funding comes in for the agencies that are being recommended for this funding, 162 new affordable housing units will be created. 16 housing units will be improved by these funds. An additional 100 households will be able to afford housing. It will make housing more affordable in the four-county region. And then the CDBG funds will also benefit almost 2,500 low-income city residents through homeless services, financial counseling, job training, small business assistance, and emergency shelter. So it is a little over $2 million, but the impact we feel is as effective as it can be with the amount of money that we have to go around. So those are the recommendations for funding for 2015-16 for you to consider tonight. Can I answer any questions?
Anyone? No? No. Okay. We will open the public hearing on this item. Anyone wishing to speak? Yes.
Hi, good evening. Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. I'm Kendra Penland. I'm the Interim Executive Director for Green Opportunities, and we just want to thank you all so much for your past and continued support. Because of the investment that the City of Asheville and the HCD Committee has made in Green Opportunities, we've been able to train and place over 200 graduates in meaningful employment and over 20 students in additional education in organizations like AB Tech. And for the first time in our organization's history, we've been able to have 100% retention in our Built Environments program and 100% placement in our culinary program, thanks to this contribution. So it's working, and it's addressing a lot of needs. So thank you so much.
Anyone else wishing to speak on this item? All right, we'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
I have a comment and then a motion. In my terms on council, I've served on all of the council committees at one time or another, and housing and community development is the most difficult one because we confront so directly serious needs in the community with not enough funds to do it. The budget is a bigger example of that, but the budget involves things that must be done, fire, police, and so forth, and trash collection. But when we're at HCD, we listen to the stories of the people who really need help the most in the community, and it's really hard to decide how to dispense the money we have. But I think we go through it pretty carefully. I think we've had an awful lot of help from the staff in figuring out how to do it, and from the nonprofit groups and developers in the community who've had their input. And so I'm pleased to move to approve this disbursement of money.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Anyone else wishing to comment?
I would just add that as far as the Asheville Regional Housing Consortium recommendations, that a similar process underwent there with hearing presentations from these folks and then trying to figure out how to divvy up the really limited dollars we have. And it's the same thing all over again, just at a more macro level. But all of those folks who represent those municipalities and other governmental bodies, the Home Consortium, take all of this so very seriously and do their homework. And again, Jeff and the staff help to evaluate these applications so we know not only that these organizations are really great, but that these dollars are actually going to go to help those people. So we can have a lot of confidence in that, in no small part because of the great analysis that y'all did. So I don't know if the motion got seconded, but I'll do it if it hasn't.
Symbolically seconded. All right, anyone else wishing to comment? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No, thank you very much. All right, item D on the public hearings agenda is a public hearing to consider the permanent closing of a portion of Bradley Street. I have Chad Bandy down here speaking on this item. Fight your way to the front. Ever so slowly, make your... Chad, you're gonna have to jump on this one next time.
Push them out of the way.
Mayor Manheimer, members of council, thank you very much. As you said, my name is Chad Bandy. I'm the fairly new streets manager in the Public Works Department. And what I have today is information for the consideration of a permanent closure of a portion of the right-of-way on Bradley Street, which is in West Asheville between State Street and Piercy. I've placed a map on the overhead, and to explain that a little bit, the yellow portion of the map is the portion of right-of-way that is proposed to be closed. The red portion is a portion of new right-of-way to be dedicated by the applicant that will allow for for ingress and egress and a water line to be moved.
For our confused audience,
Yes.
yellow is white on your monitor.
Oh, my
So
map is yellow.
Yeah. Red is red, yellow is white.
Okay. Thank you for that. This application was submitted by Mr. Fiano, the applicant. It was submitted, it was brought in front of all the applicable city departments to voice any concerns. And in addition, it was taken in front of the Multimodal Commission on February 13th. One concern that was brought to light was the Water Resources Department does have a water line that is in the existing white right-of-way that will, in conjunction with Mr. Fiano, will be relocated to the new right-of-way, the red portion, so that water service will be maintained there. In addition, a concern that was brought forward by the Multimodal Commission was continued ingress and egress and connectivity between the streets, and the new right-of-way will also allow for that to remain. So this will not be, the connection will not be disconnected in there. It will remain. So because these concerns have been satisfied, our recommendation would be, staff's recommendation would be to proceed with the permanent closure of this right-of-way. And as such, I'll be more than happy to answer any of your questions or public questions from the public hearing.
Any questions? Okay, we'll open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this item? This is your opportunity. Anyone? No? Okay, we'll close the public hearing. Do I have questions, comments, or a motion?
I move to adopt a resolution to permanently close a portion of Bradley Street.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nope. All right, thank you. All right, item E on the public hearings agenda. This is a public hearing to consider a conditional use permit for a 97-unit apartment building located at 128 and 99999 Florence Street. And Jessica Bernstein will present it, but first I need anyone who thinks they might even think about speaking on this item to come forward and get sworn in by Maggie Burleson, our city clerk. Now, just even if you think you're not sure, you're on the fence, go ahead and do it. There's no harm in getting sworn in. It doesn't mean you have to speak. Oh, there's a lot of people that might be inclined to speak. Maybe less of you should feel inclined to speak. But hold on, Maggie. Let's go. We gotta
Get the whole team.
How about everybody? Just you guys. You haven't. Come on. Who gave us these notes?
Maggie.
Maggie. Must be 30 people. People.
Is there a way to change that? It's better.
We're getting emails about this. I know, but, I mean, do we need to have that conversation?
Maggie, we're kind of washed out up there. Is there a way to?
I see that. I'm not sure what I can do to that.
I don't want to touch any buttons I shouldn't touch.
Yeah.
Just one thing before we start. This is a quasi-judicial hearing, and the decision is supposed to be made based on the factors in the UDO, but there's 7 factors. And it's sworn because there's due process procedures that have to be followed. One of the things that is in this type of thing, there's not supposed to be any ex parte contact, out of hearing contact with any of the council members. However, if that happens, all we need to do is to make sure that that's disclosed and that council member can still give an impartial and unbiased decision based on the evidence at the hearing. So just before we get started, I know that several council members have told me that they have gotten that kind of contact and have informed people that they can't discuss it. But I just want to make sure that if anyone here has had any outside contact, that they can still maintain an impartiality and can everyone still make their decision based on the evidence presented tonight. Okay, I guess everybody just raised their hand. Okay, thank you. I guess the record can reflect everyone's hand was raised. Thank you. All right, sorry, Jessica.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council, members of the public. This is a level 3 review. It's considered as a conditional use permit, and that is due to the number of residential units that are proposed. The project site consists of 2 parcels with a combined area of about 3.24 acres, located on Florence Street, with frontage also on White Fawn Place. Here's White Fawn Place. Florence Street's the primary frontage. And to give you a little context, here is Biltmore Avenue, and we're just north of the hospital campus. The project site is zoned institutional, as are the parcels to the west along Biltmore and to the south. And then to the east, we've got RS2 and RS8. To the north, there's the RS8, that's a single-family residential neighborhood, and the RS2 that's off to the east is undeveloped. The other uses in the area are institutional, medical, and office. There's some site work that has been completed on the parcels, as you can see here on the aerial. Some retaining walls for a project that was never completed, but a good bit of that site work and those retaining walls will be incorporated into this proposal. The proposal is to construct a single multifamily building with 97 residential units. The structure is shown with 4 levels, but due to the changing grade on the site, it really only looks like about 3 levels from Florence Street, and with that grade, it's about 1 level above the street. It's 42 feet as the maximum height per UDO definition. Some of the other site improvements include outdoor terraces, a pool that's a part of the open space for the residents, and the residential density is just under 30 units per acre. The access you can see is from 2 driveways off of Florence Street, and they connect to a parking area, surface parking, with 106 spaces. There's no sidewalk proposed with this project. There's existing sidewalk on the opposite side of Florence Street that was completed when that road infrastructure was done, and that suffices for Florence Street. There's landscaping required by code. All of that landscaping and open space is provided on the plans and is compliant. The plans comply with all of the city standards and requirements for development in this zoning district. The project was approved with conditions by the TRC on the 16th of March. They've held a neighborhood meeting on the 26th of March, as well as multiple additional neighborhood meetings with some of the businesses, offices in the area. The project was reviewed by the Planning and Zoning Commission on April 1st and received a unanimous recommendation of approval. There were a number of neighborhood concerns that have been heard at those meetings, all of the meetings that I mentioned, primarily regarding overflow parking and on-street parking along Florence Street. On-street parking is currently permitted along Florence Street. It hasn't been used too much since the site's been vacant, but it is currently permitted, and that was a number of the neighbors expressed concern over that. As well as the dumpster location and an increase in traffic in general to the neighborhood. But staff does recommend approval of the project as proposed. You've received a copy of the conditional use permit findings as presented by the applicant, and I know that they're here to expound on that. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have now or later on as we go forward. But that concludes my report.
Anybody have any questions? We are hearing from the applicant. Are we hearing from the applicant? Oh, there was a Jessica, actually, sorry, Lou, just one moment. Your question was it institutional? What was the zoning of the parcels?
They're currently institutional. I don't know how long they have been, but it's no rezoning is associated with this application.
There's no rezoning?
No rezoning.
And what was that site being prepared for that never fired?
It was a medical complex, not office medical.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. Members of City Council, my name is Lou Bissett, and I represent South Slope Partners, the developer of the proposed Bowcatcher Flats apartment complex, which, as Jessica indicated, is located at 128 Florence Street, just above the St. Joseph's campus of Mission Health. I have with me tonight the development team consisting of Chris Warren, Bill Neal, Brian Barwick, Eric Speckman, together with the architect Jeff Dalton of Asheville, Matt Sprouse of Sitework Studios, and Chris Day of Civil Design Concepts. We're requesting approval of a conditional use permit for the construction of this 97-unit multifamily apartment complex, which has been described to you by Jessica. The site is currently zoned institutional, and the use proposed is permitted by right in that zoning district. The applicant is proposing to meet all of the standards of the district with this development proposal. As Jessica indicated, this is a 3.24 acre site with a proposed density of 29.9 units per acre. The project was approved with conditions by the TRC and was unanimously approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission on April 1st. The applicant has held a neighborhood meeting. It has also met several times with two of its closest neighbors, Helpmate and Mission Health. Mission Health has indicated its support of this project, and I have a letter for you from Sonia Greck, Senior Vice President of Mission Health System. I'd like to read it to you and then submit it to you for the record. Recently, Mission Health had the opportunity to learn of the proposed Bowcatcher Flats housing development and the potential impact to our community. We understand that this residential site will consist of 97 apartment units within close proximity to Mission Hospital. As with most of the employers in our area, we find housing opportunities a challenge. Recruiting talent is crucial for Mission Health, and we consistently hear the struggles encountered by candidates and new employees when seeking housing. Additional housing will enhance our recruitment and retention possibilities. Based on the recent Buncombe County Housing Report, our community is facing a significant shortage of housing options, and the future projection of housing needs are quite concerning. Mission Health supports the Bowcatcher Flats residential housing development to provide more housing opportunities for our community. I'd like to admit that.
Okay, and I just want to point out to council that remember that to be considered in your decision, the person speaking has to actually be here and be sworn and subject to cross-examination. So we appreciate that, but I wanted to remind council what the quasi-judicial rules are.
The developer has met with both staff and board members of Helpmate on several occasions, 3 occasions, I think. The developer understands the security concerns of Helpmate and really has committed to assist Helpmate in several ways. One, and these are not meant to be conditions to this conditional use permit. This is a commitment by the developer to Helpmate. It would provide Helpmate with a $10,000 contribution to assist in the acquisition of an upgraded security system. They would consult with Helpmate in designing the project's landscaping and lighting packages. We would not oppose a no parking area on the lower section of Florence Street adjacent to Helpmate. We understand that's the city's prerogative, but we would certainly not oppose that. And we've committed to provide a discounted rental rate to a local law enforcement officer who would live there and be on scene. and as I indicated, we don't propose these as conditions. This property is an infill development that utilizes existing city streets, adequate previously installed water and sewer, and retaining walls, all of which are incorporated into this proposal. As you know, this is a conditional use permit application which will require specific findings of fact by the Asheville City Council in order to grant the permit. We believe that our application, which we would like to submit to the record as evidence, and the testimony that you will hear tonight presents adequate factual information to support each of the required findings by the council. They are, 1, that the proposed use or development of the land will not materially endanger the public health or safety. The existing property was partially developed in 2007. However, a building was never constructed on the site. The development of an apartment complex adjacent to the hospital and within walking distance of downtown would be of benefit to the public health and safety. The property is appropriately zoned, and the application is for an allowable density by right. 2, that the proposed use or development of the land is reasonably compatible with significant natural and topographic features on the site and within the immediate vicinity of the site, given the proposed site design and any mitigation techniques or measures proposed by the applicant. The grading and infrastructure completed in 2007 actually created a development shelf between a series of retaining walls. Site plan has been designed within these walls. The site is consistent with adjacent property, as all property in the area to the south of White Fawn has retaining walls and has to address the topographical challenges of the area. 3, that the proposed use or development of the land will not substantially injure the value of adjoining or abutting property. The proposed development will not injure the value of adjacent property because the site had already been graded and developed, yet left vacant for many years. The proposed building is over 100 feet from adjacent single-family homes to the north. The residential use of this property is consistent with the neighbors to the north and serves as an appropriate transitional use between the larger hospital institutional medical buildings to the south and west. 4, that the proposed use or development of the land will be in harmony with the scale, bulk, coverage, density, and character of the area or neighborhood in which it is located. The existing character of the neighborhood is a mix of single-family homes, institutional uses, and vacant land. These various uses and structures intersect at the proposed site. The proposed development will be in harmony with the existing neighborhood by acting as a transitional project between the scale of the large office medical buildings to the west and south and the single-family homes to the north. 5, that the proposed use or development of the land will generally conform with the comprehensive plan, smart growth policies, sustainable economic development strategic plan, and other official plans adopted by the city. The proposed project will provide 97 residential units within walking distance to the hospital and the downtown. The project is comprised mostly of one-bedroom units. 76 of the 97 units are one-bedroom units. The proposed property is an infill development that is utilizing existing infrastructure. The City of Asheville maintains the roads, and there is adequate water and sewer serving the site. The development is in close proximity to multiple planned greenways, McCormick Field, Memorial Stadium, and other city parks. Number 6, that the proposed use is appropriately located with respect to transportation facilities, water supply, fire and police protection, waste disposal, and similar facilities. The project is within walking distance to 2 bus stops on Biltmore Avenue. There's ample water supply in this area, as well as fire and police protection. The proposed development will provide private waste disposal for the site. And finally, that the proposed use will not cause undue traffic congestion or create a traffic hazard. The proposed project will not cause undue traffic or create a traffic hazard for several reasons. The project is directly accessed at a light off of Biltmore Avenue. The project does not contain enough residential units to require a traffic study, thus indicating that it does not generate enough trips to warrant concern based on the city's own guidelines. And additionally, the site proposes 2 access points on a city street. Now, I do have a letter from Ramey Kemp Associates, a traffic engineer, but I think Matt Sprouse is going to discuss that a little later when he talks to you about it. But it indicates that the usage is so small that it will not affect traffic in the neighborhood. Finally, well, not quite finally, rental rates are anticipated to be well under the city's current workforce housing maximums. If they were opening today, the 1-bedroom units would rent for just a little bit over $1,000 a month. And they're 27 2-bedroom units. And so the average price, the average rent for across these 97 units would be about $1,140 a month, which is well below the workforce housing maximums. Finally, this property currently pays $8,646 annually in city, county, and Asheville City School System taxes. Upon completion, the estimated city, county, and Asheville school system taxes will be approximately $120,000 annually. As Jessica indicated, the city planning staff report reflects that the relevant standards of the city have been met or can be met with this application. So I want to thank you for your consideration. At this time, I'd like to ask Matt Sprouse to go over with you the site plan in just a little bit more detail.
There's some seats up front. I know people are looking first. I think we've got 3 seats right up there. Sorry, Lou.
Okay, and then the rest of the development team is here for questions. Thank you very much.
Mayor and members of council, I'm Matt Sprouse, one of the principals of Sitework Studios, and we're really excited to be part of the presentation today for this project of Bowcatcher Flats. As Lou said, I'm not alone. I'm here with Jeff Dalton of Row House Architects, Chris Day of Civil Design Concepts. Hopefully we can answer any design or technical questions you might have. And I think with Jessica and Lou's presentations, they're going to leave me with pretty little to say, and I'll try to make this as quick as I can. So, there we go. Found it. So Jessica had a vicinity map, and I just wanted to share a little bit more about where this site is. And I'm not sure if the cursor shows up there, but you can see in white where it says site, Biltmore Avenue. This is positioned north-south. So Biltmore Avenue runs to the west of this property. The old White Fawn Reservoir is to the east of the property at the top of the mountain, and St. Joseph's campus of Mission is directly to the south. Just to give you a couple of images of the site as it is today, this is looking up Florence Street as if Mission or St. Joseph's was behind you. This is the new part of Florence that was built back in 2007, 2008. You can see the sidewalks and the storm drains and the street lighting, the street trees are already there. Looking to the west, sort of northwest there, you can see the city in the background. As Lou said, there were some existing retaining walls on the site, and that's one of the retaining walls, sort of downhill retaining walls that faces Biltmore Avenue. And then coming up Florence and looking into the site a little bit further, this is closer to White Fawn. You can see that the site was pretty much graded flat for previous development that was going to be a dental office. And then this is turning around and looking back up Florence with looking south. White Fawn is to your back in this photograph. And you can see again, most of the infrastructure is there. And then this is looking down the little alley of White Fawn Place, which runs the west side of the north side of the property. The site plan, and Jessica did a great job going through this, and just to point out some specifics, you can see that we've got an entrance coming up Florence Street from the hospital. Our main entrance is right across from Veronica Lane, and then as it climbs uphill on Florence Street, we have a second entrance over here closer to White Fawn. The building itself is 4 stories at its highest. From Florence Street at its kind of apex, it really looks like a 1-story building because of the terrain that we have that steps down. There are amenities in sort of the central area of the development with a pool and other amenities for the guests, for the residents, and then the parking kind of wraps around the lower end of the building. The building itself, this is an elevation, a view from the parking lot to the building. What you would see there, it's the 4-story, the height of it. You can start to see a little bit of the fenestration, the articulation of the building. There'll be balconies, a great deal of windows. The roof itself, we're proposing sort of a low hip roof that has a more residential character. And then the second image is a section through the property from Florence Street up here, and you can see these existing retaining walls and these dark black lines really set the building down into the site, which from Florence Street gives it a pretty low profile, and then we step down another story onto the 4-story side. As Lou mentioned, and I won't go into great detail because I think he did a great job talking about the 7 findings of fact, but I did want to just stress a couple of points. One is this being a previously developed graded site, this provides a really good example of infill development, and it's within a mile of Pack Square. We're designing within the existing site improvements. We're not having to grade or demolish any more land to create this. It really gives ample opportunities for multimodal transportation options for the residents that are there. There's already upgraded water lines, sewer. As Lou said, the fire and police protection is adequate. And the other that he mentioned was the traffic. The traffic study was not required. However, South Slope Partners did consult with a traffic engineer to do a study. And that study indicated that in terms of additional traffic, what this development would add is approximately 1 car per minute additionally through those peak hours. So it's really an insignificant amount of traffic. Most of that traffic would go down to the stoplight at Florence and Biltmore. Over the last 5 years, there have been 11 incidents at that intersection. 7 were only property damage, car wrecks. So that's a pretty good record for that area of town. And luckily, this won't increase that much more. With me, Chris Warren of South Slope Partners would like to introduce himself, and then I'll turn it over and let there be questions and ask of our designs team.
Are you or Mr. Bissett, are all of these slides a part of the record?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Council members, Mayor, thank you for your time today. My name is Chris Warren. I'm part of the development team with Eric Speckman, Brian Barwick, and Bill Neal. We're developers from Charlotte, North Carolina. We've enjoyed working on the Florence Street project for almost the past year. We're excited to do development in a great city. I appreciate your time today. Thank you.
All right, is that it on the applicant side? All right. And I'm going to open the, no, I'm not.
It's opponents, that any opponents that would like to speak to the 7 factors. Right.
I have to be reminded I'm rusty on my conditional use permit process. If there are any opponents, this is your opportunity to speak on this item. Limited to the 3 minutes? No, not limited.
No, but I guess it would say they need to keep it limited to the information in the 7 factors and not be repetitive and have facts that would support their position instead of just opinions and whether you like it or don't like it.
Ms. Curran,
This is
in the past, we've put those 7 factors up.
Do we
I think that's fine to put those up.
We'll be working on Jessica, look at that. She just got it. She's got it.
Guys, very good.
Except Maggie turned off the screen. Did you? Maybe shift them down a little. All right, so these are the 7.
Which you can't read.
And make it all darker. Oh. These are the 7 factors that can be considered in the context of a conditional use permit hearing. They are up on the screen. Okay, yes. Please just state your name for the record. And just, yeah.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, my name is April Burgess Johnson. I'm the Executive Director for Helpmate, and it's my pleasure to be able to speak to you about this project this evening. I want to start by saying that we do not oppose the development of this housing opportunity. We are aware of the housing crisis that we have in our city and are deeply committed to supporting multiple ways to increase housing in general and specifically affordable housing for people in our community. Item 1 talks about not significantly impacting the public health or safety. And that's the piece of this that we want to address with you all this evening and ask for your support on a couple of specific issues. So as you know, Helpmate is Buncombe County and the City of Asheville's organization that provides services to victims of domestic violence and their children. We serve approximately 2,100 victims every year. A little over 200 of those reside in our emergency shelter, which is located literally within a stone's throw of this proposed property. For that reason, additional traffic and both pedestrian traffic and vehicular traffic in this area directly impacts the safety of our shelter and the people who are residing in it. We did bring our concerns to the Planning and Zoning Committee earlier this month and have been pleased to work with South Slope Partners in an effort to find a win-win solution to some of these issues that we are all faced with. We know that domestic violence victims are at increased risk for harm or homicide immediately following the period after they separate from their abusive partner. That is the situation of all of the people in our shelter. In addition, we prioritize intake to our shelter based on the lethality risk, the actual risk of homicide faced by the individuals there. So our shelter is housing not only general victims of domestic violence, but the most endangered victims in our community during the most dangerous period in their process. And for that reason, we need to pay specific and close attention to their safety and security needs. One of the things that we know is that we have concerns about increased pedestrian traffic and safety on a very steep street, which doesn't have a sidewalk that goes all the way down to connect to the bus stops there on Biltmore Avenue. The sidewalk does end prior to reaching Biltmore Avenue. Many of the people who stay in our shelter traverse that sidewalk, that portion of the sidewalk, and then walk in the street back and forth to that bus stop on a regular basis. And so increased vehicular traffic will be an issue. And then there's also a danger for the additional pedestrians that will be walking who are residing in this area. And so we would ask that this council consider adding additional sidewalks to address some of those concerns. In addition, we know that the project meets the minimum requirements for the city for parking, but we know that there will be overflow parking on both Florence and Veronica lanes. This is an issue because both of these streets border our shelter, And that much additional traffic and overnight parking will make it incredibly easy for a batterer to literally park their car and sit outside of our shelter and watch as people come to and fro, and basically offers an additional opportunity for batterers to stalk their victims. And so we request that you consider making all of Veronica Lane, which is directly in front of our shelter, and the portion of Florence Street that has a direct sight line of our shelter, and 100 feet beyond that sight line, also designated as a no parking zone. As I mentioned earlier, we have met with South Slope Partners. They are in support of this idea as well. We're in the process of hiring a security consultant to provide us with a detailed report about where our greatest amounts of security risk and exposure will be in relationship to the building of Bowcatcher Flats, with the increased traffic flow, the overflow parking on the street, the increased pedestrian traffic. And we're grateful for the collaborative approach to address some of these concerns, and respectfully request that you all consider allowing an extended time for public comment so that we can be able to bring to the table more information about what exactly those security risks are. Thank you so much for the opportunity to address you on this topic. I'd like to introduce to you Bonnie Spradling, who is also on our board and can speak a little bit more fully on some of these issues that I've raised. Thank you.
As April said, I'm Bonnie Spradling. I have been a community volunteer and civic leader for over 40 years. I hate to even admit that. And been past president of the Junior League, past board chair of the Mountain Area Red Cross, been on Mission Healthcare Foundation trustees for 18 years, and now I'm on Help Board of Directors. My concerns have been expressed on street parking and overflow parking of residents in the apartment, ideally 97 apartments and 106 parking spaces, but I lived in a one-bedroom apartment with a husband and one child. We had 2 cars. So that can happen. 2 cars, 2 bedrooms, 2 cars, 1-bedroom apartment. That could be an actual 194 cars, not 106 parking spaces that would be parking there. Pedestrian safety has been mentioned, and also the increased security. Safety, shelter, and support. This is our bullets. This is our mission statement. These are the 3 things that make the Helpmate the only domestic violence shelter and support programs in our community. This is what we drive. This is what drives us. A national statistic shows that the domestic violence victim, as April has said, is most vulnerable in the first 6 weeks to 2 months after leaving the abuser environment. Last year, 131 adults and 74 children resided in our shelter for a total of 6,961 bed nights. I cannot tell you how many times they've expressed to volunteers and to staff how safe they felt at our shelter for the first time in many, many years. I hope that you will consider that level of safety that these residents have expressed that they feel at Helpmate when you consider April's request to extend the public comment period and not to actually vote on this tonight. We need to do this for the people, not only the people we've served, but the people we will serve in the future. It's very, very important that they feel safe and secure. Thank you very much.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council, thank you very much for your service to our community. My name is Joe Fishley. I'm the Director of Sales at News 13, but I'm also the Board President for Helpmate. Just here to reinforce what April and Bonnie have said. Most of our clients living in the shelter depend on public transportation to walk up and down Florence Street many times over the course of the week. The street is very steep and has no sidewalks. This really isn't a safe situation now, and we fear for their safety, and even more so if and when these apartments are built. Furthermore, if cars are parked on the street, it will make it very difficult for first responders to traverse the street, which is an extremely important consideration for Helpmate. We do ask that you consider additional sidewalks on Florence and on Veronica. We strongly believe that this will help alleviate our concerns in these issues. Thank you.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of council. My name is Cindy Hamilton, and I live in North Asheville, which is within the city limits. I'm also a community volunteer, and last year I was the president of Helpmate's Board of Directors. This year I serve on their executive committee as past president. Helpmate has had incidences where batterers have come to the shelter. This is not unfounded or something we fear will happen in the future. It has happened, and we do not want to make it easier for any of them to access their victim. More traffic and on-street parking will add to that problem, as it will offer the additional opportunity for batterers to hide in plain sight within the cars and within the pedestrian traffic. We hope we can find a way to better work together to address these concerns as a community and as a city. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. My name is Cindy Ireland. I am the Vice President of Information Technology at Dr. Directory here in Asheville, and I'm also on the Board of Directors serving as Secretary. I'm going to try to put this up, and I have copies for all of you. This is another view of the Florence Street area that we're talking about for pedestrian and car traffic. And you can see it's a similar view to what you had from the developer looking down the hill with the current parking situation that happens on most days. And as you can imagine, our concern is with sidewalks and pedestrians here predominantly because they're going to be having to zigzag between cars that are parked as well as the traffic coming up the hill. And really with that parking, there would be almost no two-way traffic. So we'd have cars stopped going up the hill or down the hill. As stated, we are very interested in the sidewalks as an issue. We have 130 women that have stayed in our shelter and over 70 children. If you can imagine a mother with a small toddler in a stroller and perhaps a baby in her arms trying to get to the bus stop to go to work, to go to a doctor's appointment, to get her children to school at the same time frames that other people are trying to get to work. That is really our biggest concern for our clients, and as well as the residents of this apartment complex as they're trying to get to work and do their daily lives. Really, our point is here mostly around public safety and the danger, the potential danger for the pedestrians without sidewalks. So as that is not an absolute requirement, we ask you to seriously consider the impact that that would have and the need to address that in this particular project. Thank you.
I just want to point out to council, you have the ability to limit repetitive comments, and the statutes, the general statutes specifically state that with respect to traffic safety, that you should only consider the comments of an expert traffic engineer or someone who has expertise in that area, not that you shouldn't consider comments about actual conditions that people are experiencing, but I would just caution the council to be careful about projected fears or traffic conditions that have not been substantiated by an expert witness.
Okay, anyone else wishing to speak during the public hearing on this item? Yes. Okay, wait, Maggie will take care of you. Over to Maggie.
Mayor, members of council, my name is Chet Pierce, and I own and live at 41 Whatfon Drive, which is adjacent to the property. And I appreciate the opportunity to let us express some of our concerns today. I've got two basic concerns. The first is the condition for the public welfare and safety. And this was brought up a couple of times in the P&Z and the staff report regarding the dumpster location. They have the dumpster located on the north side of the property, adjacent to the residential section, and it seems more logical if that could be put on the south side of the property that is closer to the, more deeper into the industrial zone. The second issue is also to do with the traffic that's going to be generated, and I reflect the comments that's been made by the members of HelpMate in regards to the slope of the road on Florence Street and the lack of sidewalk and amendments there. Took a little measurement and measured that section off from, the road is really, it's mildly graded when you come in until you get to the entrance to the hospital. From that point to the entrance, the southern entrance of the apartment complex, it's about 230 feet. And there's about a 45-foot grade there that I measured off of their site plan. So that puts that at about a 19% slope. It's not only steep, but it's relatively curvy. There's some retaining walls. So their main entrance is identified on that side of the property. But because of those conditions, I feel that the traffic would actually divert and go through the residential section, which is RS8, White Fawn Drive, and use their proposed northern entrance into the property. So I would like a condition considered to possibly eliminate that access, and if not eliminate it, to maybe provide some type of traffic engineering measure, maybe like a mountable curve that would prevent, make it one-way, exit only, and prevent left-hand movements. That way, I think it would eliminate a lot of the traffic that would be going through the residential section there and bring it back down toward their main entrance and toward the signalized entrance onto Biltmore Avenue. And that's all. Thank you.
Anyone else? No, I don't, unless, are you?
I mean, it's up to council, but if there's, I
We
would say-
typically don't. Do you have something new to add that hasn't been? Oh, okay.
You can ask a question of, are you asking your own capacity or as a helpmate? Okay, if the applicant's willing to answer the question, I think that's fine. It's actually for you. For me? Oh, okay, come on. Ask me a question, if I can answer it.
Your comment earlier about having a traffic expert here, are you saying that our request and our opinions on the sidewalk and our concerns for the safety of our residents are not valid because we don't have that person?
No.
No, what I'm saying is there are, the general statutes, 168, 393, states that council cannot consider evidence relating to traffic safety from a lay witness, which is someone who is not an expert. You can testify as to your concerns, but as far as whether or not there is additional traffic or some sort of hazard exists, as a matter of fact, that's something that the law does not allow someone who is not actually an expert to the council to consider that.
Okay, so we do hope that you consider that even though we're not experts.
Right.
Thank you very much. Okay.
All right, anyone else wishing to speak during the public hearing portion of this item?
Okay, you have the opportunity, the applicant can respond in any way if he has any points.
Thank you, Mayor. Let me just say, first of all, that nobody has more respect for HelpMate than I do. I actually incorporated HelpMate in 1978. They're a wonderful organization, and we want to try to meet any concerns that they have, and I think we've gone overboard to do that. I'll just say that, and then I'd like, Matt, you may want to respond to the dumpster issue. That did come up at P&Z, and I think the developer has addressed it.
Maggie, when I'm finished, but the dumpster question that was mentioned, as you can see, it's here on the site plan. There's between the dumpster and the White Fawn residence, there is the White Fawn Place alley street, which is a public street. And here in this section, you can see the dumpster enclosure here, which is a requirement by the city, by the standards. And then there is a 30-foot landscape buffer, and we've concentrated a large number of evergreens between the dumpster and the right-of-way of White Fawn Place, as well as at that point, there's about a 4-foot retaining wall that's existing. And then there's 20 feet of right-of-way, and then the closest house is about 30 feet from that point. So we're looking at 75, 80 feet from the nearest residence to the dumpster itself, along with a good bit of screening. I also want to, in talking with the developers, as Lou said, they're in support of the street parking, the issue with the steepness that's here, but in relation to the sidewalk, yes, the sidewalk does come down. Boy, that's really hard to see, isn't it? And ends here, and all of this is within the public right-of-way. This is all City of Asheville, but they would be willing to look at a sidewalk that at least comes to the end of their property. Now, beyond that is hospital and county property beyond, so they don't actually touch anything down at this building around.
Could you talk more about that consideration of a sidewalk?
Well, the sidewalk itself, depending on the grade, if you can see that, there's an existing crosswalk that's here and that's here. Yeah, there is a ramp there. I won't say it's a crosswalk, but they are willing to look at that sidewalk that would at least join to the Buncombe County sidewalk.
As an additional condition to this permit?
What's the rough length of that?
About 200 feet.
Okay, and so you're willing to offer that as a condition of your permit? And I guess we need to make sure that we understand what that condition is, and it's a...
That's not clear.
Well, I guess, can you mark that, I guess, in the bottom right corner as like sidewalk exhibit or something? And that way we'll have that as a reference. And that's the area where you have committed to construct the sidewalk. And I guess we need to talk about, according to city standards, or a certain width, or...
Well, Mr. Sprouse said it's contingent on grade. I mean, is there a maximum grade allowable based on state law or city standards that we need to be concerned about here?
Not in the city right-of-way. And that's, in any city street, in any city right-of-way, the grade of the sidewalk can follow the grade of the road.
And Jessica, I don't know if you have any...
Can you just describe where the existing sidewalk is?
Sure. I won't draw on this.
Well, don't muck up.
Don't do it.
So the existing sidewalk follows along the opposite side of Florence Street, right here. Maybe you can, oh, there we go. So I've turned this 90 degrees. Florence Street runs along the opposite side. There's a crosswalk here between, crossing over Veronica, and then there is a ramp here. And then what we're proposing is to follow down to the bottom of where the Buncombe County property line is, through the city right-of-way.
And at present, there's no sidewalk below that low point where you're suggesting to end?
From here?
Right.
No.
That
is all asphalt parking lot right now.
Little property. Any other comments on this section? Clear? They're proposing that.
The sidewalk thing, yes, okay.
As a condition.
I have another landscape site issue. Mr. Pierce suggested that a solution to keeping traffic off the north side would be to close an entrance. But is there not a requirement that there be multiple entrances to something this scale?
Yes.
So the single entrance option really is not on the table?
No.
Is that true?
For fire protection, we're looking at 2 entrances as a requirement.
It occurred to me about that, if the upper entrance, if Florence Street were one way from the upper entrance down, from where it says secondary entrance, if Florence Street were one way down to that main entrance, it would demand that traffic could not be going uphill and entering. I mean, it would tend to cycle the traffic around, if you see what I mean. I don't know if that's a good traffic idea.
And that would be a city, that's a
Yeah.
city street, so we would have to figure that out.
Right, I mean, it just occurred to me that it might.
Okay, any other, that was the traffic. Do we want to do the dumpster, or no, we're not doing the dumpster?
We did the dumpster.
We did the dump.
I
Did we have
apologize. I stepped out during the dumpster question. So what's changed, or has anything changed?
Tell us about the dumpster.
Tell us about the dumpster. Find my exhibit. So the current dumpster location is here on the north side. And just to provide a quick section so you understand kind of what happens from the topography. Here is our dumpster screening and the parking beyond it for our project. There is a 30-foot required buffer from the edge of that dumpster screening all the way to the edge of the right-of-way of White Fawn Place, which is that alley I showed a picture of. There's a good bit of landscape concentrated there, as well as the dumpster screening. And then there's another 20 feet of right-of-way and about 30 more feet to the closest residence. So between the dumpster screening itself, which will keep the residents from seeing that, there's about 75, 80 feet to the closest resident.
And is that on the south side?
It's on the north side. I could turn this. So this is north. Here's the dumpster.
Okay.
So just to be clear about that, there's to move the dumpster elsewhere on the site would move it away from some residences, but nearer to others.
Correct.
Within the complex.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, is that sort of the logic?
That and also the other logic is this entrance off of Florence Street is the main entrance of this development. In order to tuck that somewhere else became difficult with grading and with walls and screening. We can adequately screen it where it is.
Do you have a question?
I do. Yes. During Mr. Bissett's presentation, he mentioned 4 things that you're working with Helpmate on: providing $10,000 contribution, consultation regarding landscaping and lighting, no parking on Florence Street, that there wouldn't be an opposition to that, and offering a discounted rate to a public safety officer to live there. However, at the same time, said that they wouldn't commit to it as a condition. So I'm just curious as to what the level of commitment there is if we're not willing to make a condition.
Gordon, I think do we need to address that from a technical standpoint, whether those could be conditions of the conditional use permit?
Those can be conditions of the conditional use permit if the applicant is willing to offer them up and consent to them. Otherwise, we probably need to, if the council felt that they were necessary, any of those, in order to meet the 7 standards, I think right now that what's been presented is we've been told there's an agreement, but that doesn't give the city any enforcement mechanism on these particular items. So in order for us to be able to enforce it, they'd have to be a condition.
You know, those conditions, they've committed to a $10,000 payment, which they hoped Helpmate would use for a security study and perhaps to upgrade some of their security items. The other, you know, one of them was, we're not going to, if they can convince the city to prohibit parking on the lower part of Florence Street around, we're certainly not going to oppose that, but we don't really have much to say about it. The other one was that we talked at our last meeting last Thursday at Helpmate about getting their input on both the landscaping and the lighting at our entrance, because that was a concern that they had. Some of the landscaping might be such that a person could hide behind it. So we said, well, we can do trees and not have low bushes that people could hide behind, and we could improve the lighting. But you know, I don't know how you do that as a condition. We're saying in good faith we're gonna work with you, show you our landscaping and lighting plans, and do anything that we can do to help you with that. And then we would certainly like to have a law enforcement officer in our project. So we're willing to do that too. So I had not looked at these as conditions because I think, you know, my clients are committed to it, and I believe what they say. So.
Well, they're all very laudable, and I imagine so too. This is simply council's opportunity to be able to really nail that kind of thing down.
And are we talking about a written agreement between the parties?
We can certainly do that. Yeah.
So there would.
To that effect, you know, I mean, I don't know how you enforce, we're going to consult with you on our light. You know, we're going to do that. But,
I mean, if they were to be conditions, I think the $10,000 payment for security could go toward health, safety, and welfare if they were willing to offer that. I think the parking is an issue that probably staff needs to talk about. I don't think that they would support that. With respect to landscaping and lighting, I think that you could have a condition that doesn't have a right of approval, but that could say that you would be willing, that you are going to present that to Helpmate, you know, prior to submitting it to the city. And with respect to the law enforcement officer, if you wanted to do that too, you could say that a condition is that you have 1 unit available at a certain percentage. But again, that's something that's up to you, I think, at this point. If you think that that will help you meet your 7 standards and you're willing to do it.
we think we've met our 7 standards.
Okay.
But we do want to, you know, do everything we can so that Helpmate is comfortable about this. I mean, most people that I know think, well, if you've got all these, you know, if you go up there now, it is desolate. And there are some people living up there from time to time in tents. And instead, you're going to have an apartment complex with 97 units in it. So you're going to have a lot more eyes. So we really think that this will provide more security to Helpmate. But they know more about it than their particular concern than we do, and we're trying our best to try to help them with that.
Regarding these points of agreement between Helpmate and the developer, I don't think I heard Helpmate leaders say that they request that council make these conditions. They have not said that they have any reason to believe they won't come true. So Gordon, to me, it feels a little like this is worked out. Yes, we could perhaps press that they be conditions to us, but I haven't heard that there's any level of concern about these things not occurring.
Well, the question I had was, Helpmate said they wanted more time. And so I guess it was confusing to me, the $10,000 and more time, how's that?
We did not hear the more time at any of our meetings with HelpMate until tonight. It's the first time I've heard that. And, you know, we've been working on this a long time. Time is very important in a project like this because it's a small project. This is not a 400-unit project. It's a small one. It's a hard one to make work because of the cost of the property and the building requirements up there. So we would not, I don't understand the more time. I mean.
Well, in addition, we have an ordinance that requires us to act within 35 days of receiving the materials on a application. So I don't know that we necessarily have much more time. Are you? Sure. Folks, this is how the sausage is made. You're watching it right now.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak again. And I just want to reiterate that
We want people at home to be able to hear you.
right.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Sorry.
I promise to be a short speaker. We've been really pleased to work with Mr. Bissett and South Slope Partners. They have been more than open to working with us. We're not asking that the council put additional requirements on them. We trust their good faith offer. Our primary concern is really around security. And the two main issues that flow out of that for us are the sidewalks and pedestrian safety, and really the parking issue. Having the small amount of cars that currently show up occasionally parked on Florence is consistently an issue for us. APD has been more than generous in sending out patrol officers to check when there are cars that we don't recognize, that aren't parked there regularly, or that have people in them. I'm worried about the drain on public resources if we've got consistently parked cars that are offering this constant security hazard. I don't know that we can expect or anticipate or that it's reasonable to ask for that same degree of support and protection that our police are so generously offering to us now. And so the issues that we're bringing around parking and security, we are really requesting the city to support us on addressing these issues rather than make additional cumbersome requirements on a small housing development that meets a pressing and urgent need for our community. So sorry if we weren't clear in those remarks earlier, but definitely wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Could we go back to Mr. Pierce's question about, I know that we have to have access on both entrances to the complex, but would it be possible, and probably, this is probably a Jeff Moore question, but is it possible that there can be some type of, maybe not something that prevents, but something that discourages the use of White Fawn as an exit and as a main route out of the complex? Is there a way of doing that that discourages but does not stop traffic from coming in?
Good evening, Jeff Moore, City Traffic Engineer. Because there wasn't an official traffic impact study done, there were no splits assigned, which would be, say the peak hour, the PM peak hour has 71 trips estimated. I believe 20, actually the AM peak would have 41 exiting trips, so that should be the one we'd be most concerned about. Assuming half of them went in either direction, which as a traffic engineer I would look, where's the closest signal? And I would assign the majority of the trips to that signal, probably 85%, but let's say 50%. Well, that's 20 additional vehicles that would turn and go up White Fawn. That would be one every 3 minutes or so, and that would not be something that would be of a concern. However, should it be a concern, should it be something that we really wanted to make sure didn't happen, it could be changed into a right turn only, say no left turns out of there. But you know, assuming that that would cause a problem, which at this point I really don't see a reason to assume that, based on what I've done with my, I went ahead and did a quick trip study on it just to get an idea of what traffic would be caused. So Is to sum it all up, I don't see a reason that that would be an issue with a signal just down the hill, but something could be done, sir, to answer your question. Yes, we could restrict left turns out of there.
That's good enough.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, tell me what you're doing.
It's the power access code that says there's only a need for one access point.
Oh, okay. Why don't we ask staff to address that? This is the question about whether or not there's two access points or one access point required for fire or?
When we did the pre-application meetings, I met several times with the applicant early in the development stages, and they originally wanted to have just a single entrance, and it was determined by the fire department through the TRC review that the two entrances were required.
So to clarify, you've got two entrances to the complex onto Florence Street. I guess is the question whether Florence Street is connected to White Fawn Drive, so I don't know that there's much to be able to, the concern we're hearing about is the folks on the White Fawn Drive side, but other than, I'm not understanding what can be done to address that when those are public roads that are open. Is there?
I think Mr. Moore addressed it too.
Okay, all right.
I'm good with that.
Okay.
One other question.
While you're here.
On the parking, the concern about the parking on Florence, it doesn't appear to me that parking on Florence should be allowed to begin with, as steep as it is and in as much traffic as there is in there. So is there some way of doing that?
It's quite steep at the curve, as we've discussed, and sort of is not terribly steep as it continues on. That's not a technical response, but just from being up there, site visits and visiting and parking to post the site. We have talked a little bit internally about the restriction of parking, public parking on Florence Street. That would certainly be something that council could consider. We'd want to be very careful as you go into that single-family neighborhood to the north. It's an older neighborhood, not a lot of driveways and garages, so most of those residents do depend on on-street parking for their own homes. And so we just want to be very careful that we don't have unintended consequences that really create a problem in that neighborhood, also with the proximity to the stadium on busy game days. So we just want to look at that very carefully, where parking is restricted.
Okay.
Did you have another question for Jessica?
Yeah, just to follow up on that point. Jessica, the steep area you're talking about is the area next to the new red line, which is, and if I understand, a key concern about a key rationale for eliminating parking is for pedestrian safety. But now we have a condition where a sidewalk is going in that steep curve. So that the rationale to prevent parking in the steep curve area diminishes because now we've got a sidewalk. Is that logic?
I would follow that logic from the pedestrian safety perspective, that sidewalk, if we're looking at the ability for pedestrians to safely get to Biltmore Avenue for walking and transit, I think that would help alleviate that concern. There were concerns from Helpmate going up the street from their site visibility, but I think that is separate from the pedestrian safety.
Yeah, that's the security concerns related to parking are not necessarily in the curve area, but further up.
Yeah, and we, from staff, transportation and planning, haven't had an opportunity to explore. I think they've discussed between themselves 100 feet in either direction, and we haven't had an opportunity to really evaluate that technically.
So let me ask a technical question about conditions. The condition, Robin, the conditional use permit relates between what we require and the development. Whether or not to allow parking on a public street is a separate policy question that we can't solve by deciding how this permit might be conditioned. That is a discussion we could either take up tonight, but we could also take it up later. I'm just trying to be clear about separating where our decision-making lies here.
I think so, and I think Helpmate has said that. I guess I would defer to Jeff about on-street parking, if it's allowed at this point, what the procedure would be, if you could address that to council. If they wanted to eliminate it, what would be the procedure through transportation to make that happen?
Sure.
As opposed to tonight?
Sure. The traffic engineer has the authority basically to restrict to restrict parking in any location on a city street. So that's something that we could look at with consideration. We want to make sure we don't have unwelcome, unintended consequences. But generally, the on-street parking serves the neighbors closely related to that parking. So in this case, it appears that the neighbors would request that parking be eliminated. It would not adversely affect them, so we can certainly consider it. I think we can consider that favorably.
So you could look at it and then report back to council at a later time? Is that where you're going?
That's where I'm going, and part of where my mind goes is I would rather make sure we have investigated this policy question more thoroughly, and I would ask the Helpmate folks, if we approve this permit tonight, to, in good faith, trust that we will follow up, and I think you're saying you will, and
yes, sir.
All of us at this table are.
If I could just add, I think this might be helpful, because when we were talking to Helpmate, if you'll look up there, this red line, they are concerned about parking only to the end of that red line right there, because if you're up here, if you get any further up there, you cannot see the Helpmate facility from there. And it goes up like this and then sort of levels out at the top. So the top part, after you get past that red line, is relatively flat, comparatively speaking. So that was the idea about the parking, is that if you restricted it just to that red line, then nobody parking up there past that could see the Helpmate facility.
Okay, thank you. Oh, yes.
Were there any more comments about the sidewalk or the parking before I move on to a different area?
I have one comment about the sidewalk. In speaking with the client, the developer, and the condition about the sidewalk on Florence Street, something for council to consider, which is right now they have a potential fee in lieu of on White Fawn Place, which is that alley, because it is a city right-of-way, the city street that abuts the property. So they were looking into paying a fee in lieu of for that section, primarily because it doesn't make a lot of sense to put a sidewalk back in that alley. What they would request is maybe part of that condition, that fee in lieu of could be transferred to the Florence Street sidewalk. In other words, not paying it twice.
Well, your obligation is for a certain number of feet of sidewalk
Correct.
total, right? And so don't you get to choose a little bit where you put it, or?
Well, with the fee in lieu of, it's just
Goes into
to the city.
fund.
I guess that we need to clarify, is the condition that they actually construct the sidewalk on this sidewalk exhibit, or is a fee in lieu an option? And I think we probably need to get that clarified.
Yeah, I think I'd like to see it built, the new piece.
And would you let them apply the fee in lieu of funds to that?
Well, the fee in lieu of, is that, like you said,
Jeff, why don't you?
Number of feet?
You speak to that. There are certain circumstances where you can pay a fee in lieu, and that's in the specs manual, which Jeff can tell you.
Yes, ma'am.
I think if they have to pay a fee in lieu for one part, then that has to cover that part, because we've got a new sidewalk now that's additional, would be additional money or additional construction. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, that is my understanding of how it would work. We, of course, would rather have sidewalk, but in a situation where topography or other constraints make it very, very difficult to provide the sidewalk, fee in lieu of is an option. That is our flexibility to allow fee in lieu of. Of course, there are certain places you can't, like needed linkage. So I really don't know of a mechanism to designate this fee in lieu of to a specific location. It generally goes into a fund which then constructs sidewalk. based on the priority and where it's needed. There's no guarantee that if a person pays fee in lieu of, that sidewalk then would immediately benefit their property.
So I guess what I would suggest or talk to, see whether y'all would agree to this. So say, for example, and I'm completely making these numbers up, but say the fee in lieu of would be a fee for 100 linear feet. Sure. And the proposed red line is 25 feet. What my proposal, or what I might be, or would ask their opinion whether they would be willing to do it, is they build the 25 feet and then the fee in lieu of for 75. But I would prefer that they build as opposed to give a fee, because like we, I think our concern is we don't sometimes have resources within the city as quickly as sometimes these projects need them.
Can I ask a follow-up question to that? So for some reason, they would be required to put a sidewalk on White Fawn?
Yes, sir.
But they wouldn't be required to put a sidewalk on their other property, which fronts on Florence?
Yes, sir. It's my understanding the property line ends right here, so this becomes right of way.
Oh, okay.
So they don't have the frontage there.
The lawn was confusing me there.
Yes, sir, it is. Me too. I'm just not aware of a mechanism to designate a location to take fee in lieu of and put sidewalk there immediately. That is, at some point in time, sidewalk will be built there.
I think it's what it's doing is it's giving them an exception from their fee and lieu responsibility on White Fawn, and I don't know that you can do that in the special use permit.
Can you do a partial exception?
I think that the sidewalk requirements are set forth in the specs manual and in the UDO. Can you give a variance to that in this proceeding? No. Could you require additional sidewalk and then apply the fee in lieu to that? Potentially, but for the 25 extra, for the extra fee.
Yeah, but, no, I didn't, that's not what I heard. What I heard Robin say is you could require additional sidewalk and take a fee in lieu for that.
Correct.
She's not saying mix it all up here. So okay, all right, we're getting a little complicated. Can we? Gordon had a next item.
Yeah, and hopefully that can get kind of boiled down, simplified. I don't want to.
We're going to land right back where we were.
Get stuck there. I had a question for Mr. Bissett. Where'd he go? Oh, there he is. He's hiding there by
He's still here, yeah.
Well, I envy that ability. You mentioned that the one-bedrooms were just over $1,000 a month, and then mentioned an average. Could you just lay out the one-bedroom rents and the two-bedroom rents?
One-bedroom rents, of which there are 75 one-bedrooms of the 97. They're at $1,050 a month. That's the projected rent. The two bedrooms are at $1,450 per month, and there are 26 of those. And if you average that, I averaged it, and it came to $1,140 per month.
Thanks. And when you mentioned Mission Hospital, I just did a quick check and started looking at kind of what they pay their people there. And so this looks like if you're a nurse working at Mission, this is going to be a place you can afford to live. But a phlebotomist at Mission makes $10.52 an hour. They can't afford to live here. An administrative assistant's making $14.02 an hour. Can't afford to live here. So I guess I'm just wondering, as far as Mission is concerned and as far as the developer is concerned, making this exclusive to people who are median income and above, I was just wondering if you could kind of share your thoughts about that.
Well, I was looking at the at the city's workforce, they call it workforce housing maximums, and I think for a, let's see, for a one-bedroom, your maximum is $1,267 per month. Ours are $1,050 per month.
Yeah, and that's the 120%.
Yeah, so.
And I think part of that's just an unfortunate moniker because it's, I mean, to not call an administrative assistant someone in the workforce, I think isn't terribly respectful, nor, the phlebotomist. They are obviously in the workforce but can't afford this house.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make that point.
Okay, and as I indicated, it's a small project, expensive property, it's infill, and they've got, and they reworked this thing a number of times, and it has got to, the bottom line has to work out in order for them to finance it, and so they feel like this is given, from some of the apartments I've seen, that this is a much lower rate than some of the others across.
Agreed, and I think that what I want to be able to say here is that everyone's aware of the affordable housing crisis that we have here in the city of Asheville at this point. I think that there's been a real community education on that and really a strong community experience, and that as a council, we're well aware that with the partners and the resources and the tools that we have currently, we can't meet all that need. And so we are seeking partners to be able to not only provide that workforce level housing, and although we're grateful for that as well, but also to be able to address the fact that there are thousands and thousands of people who are being excluded from being able to live close to where they work. So I'm seeking further partnership.
Understand it. Thank you.
Okay. Anything further? Jan, you had something?
First of all, this is a difficult situation because I remember when Helpmate first got the property over there, they invited council over, and it was just a great tour. The facility was fantastic for what they do, and it was unusual to be able to have living that close to where people can work and where their clients can have a normal life and be that secure. It's very unusual in an urban environment to have that, so I understand where they're coming from completely. On the other hand, we have property here that's been sitting for a long time without development because I think we looked at it earlier on, the dentist office, or I remember a medical office. Even though this is workforce housing that sounds very high, that does alleviate some pain housing to be built in an area where people are working. And I really feel like with Mr. Bissett at the helm of that, and Matt, we know these folks well. I know that they're very willing to make these things that they said would happen come true. So I think that the security that can be bought, or the situation improved with lighting, with the cash that they're offering, makes some sense. And it's not realistic to feel like this property is not going to develop at some point. So with that, I feel like we've got some quality developers building a product that we need. So I would offer the motion.
Let me close the public hearing.
Yeah, I had one other thing for Mr. Bissett. The staff has recommended that the approval also be conditioned on your compliance with the site plan and the TRC conditions. I assume that you're okay with that?
Yes, we are.
Okay, and any motion to approve would actually include the conditions that have been offered up as well. So I just wanted to point that out.
For clarity, I think on the sidewalk where we left it is, per our requirements already, there's a fee in lieu of being contemplated for White Fawn Place. And in addition, we're looking at a condition for the construction of additional sidewalk as indicated on the sidewalk exhibit.
Which needs to be given to Maggie.
Which is sitting right there, so we're going to give it to Maggie.
And just one more comment before Jan
tries again.
John tries to make a motion.
All the points that Jan made about the positives for this project, I agree that it's great infill. I'm so glad that the developer is working so closely with a really treasured partner and important part of our community and helpmate. When I'm talking about these affordable housing rates and seeking partnership with the future, that this developer in looking at Asheville for future building might be willing to work with us around alleviating some of that affordable housing. And we need to make sure that not all of our housing in the city is exclusive to people who are making 120% of median income. It leaves too many people behind. That being said, the attorney has let me know that the conditional use permit process and the 7 standards do not allow me to consider affordable housing as a condition for approval. So while these are concerns that I'm stating here tonight and a relationship that I hope to grow, I won't be able to base my vote tonight on that factor.
And I appreciate what Gordon just said. I will move to recommend approval of the conditional use permit for Florence Street Apartments located at 128 Florence Street and White Fawn Lane with the conditions that have been mentioned.
Satisfactory? Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Chris, did you want to ask what the?
Yeah, I was just, have we established what the fee in lieu will be on this project?
No, sir, we haven't. Once it's approved, we will measure that and determine based on the linear footage.
It's a standard formula, correct?
It's your standard formula.
Per foot?
Yes, sir, per linear foot.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And just one other point of conversation. Somebody expressed a preference that this sidewalk be built instead of in lieu of, I think I heard.
No, we just clarified that condition.
No, I understand about the condition, but in general,
This is a general.
It's just general.
Sidewalk
In
policy.
general, I like to see sidewalks built and that developers not be simply given the option at their whim. We need more sidewalks here. In this case, White Fawn Place is a lightly traveled alley. White Fawn Drive parallels it and comes down. It does have a sidewalk, right, Jeff, White Fawn Drive? Well, whether it does or not, my point, you don't need to look it up, Jeff. My point is that because White Fawn Alley would not necessarily be a primary pedestrian route anyway, in this case, I would rather have the fee in lieu of, but in most cases, I'd rather have the sidewalks. I don't know if we need to have a policy discussion about pushing for sidewalks and pushing against fee in lieu of, but that seemed to be up.
No, I just didn't want to swap out the sidewalk that was proposed, the one in the red, for a fee, because I wanted to see it built.
Fair enough. Thank you.
No, yes?
No, I don't have any.
Okay, you can, okay, just breathing. All right. We're ready to vote? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. We tried to do something with the thermostat. I know this is how we do it. We sweat you out until you can't take it.
One last thing that I wanted to point out, the findings of fact and conclusions of law will come before council in 2 weeks for approval, and that'll be the official written decision.
Okay. That concludes the public hearings this evening. Council, we do have a closed session, but do you want to just, what do you want to do about that? Because
We got a lot of public comment.
But I've got them all. But
All the,
okay, we have a few items left on our agenda. So I want to move on to the next part. We have 3 items under new business. I know there's a lot of people here to speak at the end. Isaac Dixon folks, I have several of you signed up to speak. Can you raise your hand if you intend to speak on the Isaac Dixon Power Substation? I got one. Keep them up. 1, 2, 7, 8, 9, maybe 10, maybe 12. All right. Okay. What do you want to do?
I'd be open to moving that. If there are people here to speak on that matter, to move some of the public comment and informal discussion earlier into the agenda so school kids can get to bed.
Do that now, in other words.
so you can do that now, just the Isaac Dixon ones.
Is that all right?
Okay, with me.
All right, Isaac Dixon, we're going to move you up to the now part. Before we do our new business, let me, and you don't have to, I've got people signed up, so I'm going to call, our tradition is to call in order of those who have signed up, and then if you haven't signed up, then I'll ask if there's anyone else who would like to provide a comment. I do want to tell you, before we start this topic, just a few things to know about this, and you all probably know some of this already, so just bear with me. I know that you're here to talk about the proposed substation to be sited next to the new Isaac Dixon Elementary School on Hill Street. This is a project undertaken by Duke Power, and the council is familiar with Duke's need to site 3 substations in the downtown area in the next few years. And we're aware that they have acquired from private landowners the properties to do that. Somebody asked me if the city sold them this property, and no, we did not sell them this property. The city has a limited role in this process. We have some authority to be able to require screening and buffering of a substation site. We have consulted with our attorney who has looked into this for us. We haven't had this issue come up since I've been on council, and Jan's been here the longest. I don't know if he's had it come up yet. Nope. So we don't have the ability to zone them out in summary. So that's kind of where we sit in this situation. The part that the city, or the county for that matter, could potentially play in this situation is if the city had land available that was suitable for an alternative site, or the county did. Please know that we have exhaustively looked to see if we do, and we do not. But I appreciate that there's a great concern about this. This is a very serious issue. We take it very seriously ourselves, and we have tried very hard to see what opportunities we have to play a part in this situation. I personally convened a meeting with Isaac Dixon's PTO co-director, Deanna Border, along with Pam Baldwin, your superintendent, and Peggy Dahlman, the chair of the school board. Matt Buys as well came to a meeting this last week along with several Duke representatives. I asked our city manager to attend, and one of our assistant city managers, our real estate staff person who handles our real estate, along with a couple of city council members. Mark Hunt was there, and Gwen Whistler, so that we could all sit down, understand the complexity of the issue, and see what opportunities there were to address the problem. And I'll tell you, it's a very challenging issue, and I feel confident that we have looked very hard at what opportunities we have to try to see if there's any land available for an alternative site. So please have that as a background. I don't know if you've had an opportunity to talk with the county or county commissioners yet. I'm not necessarily telling you to go do that. I do know that they, of course, have funded the school construction and are concerned about this matter as well. With that said, I will begin calling those who have signed up to speak on this matter. Did anyone want to, do you want to add anything on the, okay, go ahead. The first person I have signed up to speak is Angie, I think it says Angie Everett. And typically, what we would ask during the public comment period is for you to have 3 minutes to speak, or you can have 10 if you can get 3 others to yield their time to you, meaning they will not speak tonight.
Exactly, and lucky me, I have 3.
3, all right, raise your hand, 3, okay, and you're yielding your time for the evening, thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for having us here this evening. I am the other PTO co-president. My name is Angie Everett, and I would like to share with you all our position statement first. The new Isaac Dixon Elementary School is the first school that has been built within the city school district in 30 years. It has been designed to be LEED Platinum standards and to be one of the first net zero energy schools in North Carolina and the southeastern United States. Pretty rare. We are a top-performing school within our district and within the state. The Isaac Dixon Elementary PTO believes that Duke Energy's plan to build a substation on the property adjacent to the new IDS building threatens the success of this great school. While the data related to EMFs and their potentially dangerous health effects remains inconclusive, many prominent studies have concluded that these health concerns are valid. Additionally, there are historical, archaeological, aesthetic, environmental, and social justice issues at stake. Even the perception of health risk threatens to dismantle the great community that defines the success of this school, with parents choosing to switch schools within the district or move their children to private or charter schools rather than risk the potential harm to their children. The IDS PTO would like to work in conjunction with Duke Energy and city officials to find a better location for the substation, a site that provides for the increased energy demands of our great city, but that is also consistent with the needs and interests of the families who live here. And it is with that that I would like to turn over about 200 letters to you all that have been signed by approximately a third to a half of our parent body in a week's time. Yes, thank you. And on the bottom of that, there's a letter from our principal as well. He's one of our important PTO members, we believe. I would also like to read those letters to you. They all say the same thing. Dear Asheville City Council members, as an Isaac Dixon Elementary School parent, I am very concerned about the location of a Duke Energy power substation next to our new school. There are potential serious health risks and safety risks for our children if the substation is built close to the school. Potential risks may include electrocution. A child was electrocuted when he entered a power substation near a park in Florida just last fall. And possible increased cancer risks for our children due to electromagnetic fields. Given these potential risks, it is not prudent to move forward with the current plan to build the substation next to Dixon. Why would we risk the health and safety of our children, given that the body of research about the effects of EMF on children is inconclusive? I am writing to ask that you work with the Dixon PTO and the Asheville City School Board to help Duke Energy find an alternative site for the substation and avoid potential risk to our children's health and safety. Our community is investing a great deal in building a healthy new school for our children, and the location of a power substation right next to it seriously diminishes this community investment. Thank you for your consideration. I hope that you will join us and provide leadership to move the location of the substation away from our children's school. This is the right thing to do for our children. I would go on to say that while y'all were perhaps meeting beforehand, we had quite a little rally outside. We had about 50 parents and children who are trying to make their voices heard. So what I would ask is, are you willing to jeopardize the health of our children? Are you willing to put at risk the outstanding reputation of our school? Are you willing to trivialize the $23 million investment that our taxpayers and our government is spending to build this state-of-the-art and first-of-its-kind school? Are you willing to give yet another slap in the face to the formerly displaced residents of the African-American community known as Stumptown? Are you willing to have as your legacy that you chose Duke Power over the health and well-being of our children and teachers? We ask for your leadership and assistance on this issue. Please help us. Thank you.
Thank you. Folks, so we have a rule in this chamber that we don't allow clapping after each speaker because it takes a lot longer. I apologize. I know a lot of people hate that rule. It's a bummer. But, ma'am, I'm sorry. I understand where you're coming from. I am sure. Let's just move through the speakers. The next one I have on the list is Katie Russell.
You don't so really.
Okay, and next after this is Calvin Tompkins, just so heads up.
My name is Katie Russell, and I'm the parent of a second grader and a rising kindergartner at Dixon Elementary. And I am also a graduate of Asheville High School and went through Asheville City Schools all the way through from kindergarten, and I'm very invested in this community and this city school system. You've heard from Angie our concerns, and I think you've heard them before this meeting, and we very much appreciate your attention to this issue and your consideration. What I want to emphasize tonight is the diminishment of our investment as a community, as county taxpayers, as city taxpayers. You all know we've made quite an investment in this school, both in terms of money and in terms of community effort over the years. Over the years, teachers, administrators, parents, taxpayers have worked to make this the top achieving elementary school in the city and one of the top in the state. This is not an investment that we want to diminish. You will hear from some of our physician friends at Dixon about the health risks, and you probably have done some investigation into this. But what I am concerned about, of course, are the health risks for my children. Honestly, if they build the power station next to Dixon, I will likely have the resources to pull my children out so that I do not have to worry that I am risking that they have an increased likelihood of getting leukemia. I have heard many others with resources and options say the same thing. I have heard parents of a child in my child's pre-K class say, Dixon was our top choice, but we're not going there. This decision to put a substation next to our school is going to take all of the kids who have other options out of this great school, and it is going to leave minority children and low-income children to bear the brunt of this. And it is going to turn our top school in the city and the county into something very different. So we know that you have expressed that you have limited options, but we need to come together as a community and protect this community resource. We know that schools are important. We know that in our state, schools are bearing a brunt of bad decisions, and we need to protect this tremendous success that we have, and we need to protect the health and the academic achievement of our children. So we are asking you to do anything that you can to help us to move this substation away from our school. We appreciate your leadership, and we ask you to join us in our efforts. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, our next speaker is Calvin Tompkins, and then after that is Sarah Patton.
Good evening. My name is Calvin Tompkins, and I appreciate the time and the opportunity to voice my concern. I am a pediatrician here in Asheville. I am an associate professor of medicine at the UNC School of Medicine. I am the physician leader of the Western North Carolina Pediatric Care Collaborative. But my most pertinent credential with regards to this issue is that I'm the father of a second grader. And I'm here to voice my concern about the proposed location of the Duke Energy substation, a known source of electromagnetic fields. This exposure concern has prompted multiple countries across the globe to run literally hundreds of studies in the last several decades. And we've had the opportunity now to compile the results of all those studies. And as such, the World Health Organization, through its arm, the International Agency for Cancer Research, as well as the American Cancer Society, have classified exposure to electromagnetic fields as a possible carcinogen. And so I usually come to a talk like this with at least 3 points, but I only have 1 point. There's no room to put a possible carcinogen next to a school of 500 children. With regards to public policy, the World Health Organization recommends that we we act with prudence and use the precautionary principle with regards to public policy. And so the prudent thing in this situation would be to avoid this exposure. When I attended the PTO meeting just last week, and there were all the parents in the room understand that Asheville's energy needs have increased and that we do need to find a solution. And what I advocated was for a win-win solution where Asheville gets the energy that it needs, but it doesn't impact the well-being of our children. And there were a whole lot of very well-meaning parents in the room, and they made some helpful suggestions, such as putting the substation underground, splitting the substation up into 2 smaller parts, building a really big fence. But these all represent compromises, and we're not in a position to compromise the health of our children. What a win-win situation is very different, and includes just avoiding the exposure. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Sarah Patton, and then next is Rustin Adcock.
Hi.
I know, sorry.
So my husband and I, actually Rustin Adcock, are both Montford residents and Isaac Dixon parents. So we're deeply invested in this issue. We have 3 children, a 3rd grader, a kindergartner, and a preschooler. And we have grave concerns about the proposed substation. And I had this whole thing written out, but I'm actually going to depart from it because I understand from Deanna, I've been pretty involved in this issue, that there is some question about whether the EMF argument within your council is valid or not, and I know you're going to hear a lot. As a parent, for me, having read all the reports that my physician husband has printed out and researched, it is valid. The World Health Organization says it's valid, and that is enough for me as a parent to want to pull my kids out of the school. It makes me so sad. Every day, my husband bikes our kids to school. It is awesome. It is a really awesome thing. At the Montford meeting, Duke Energy indicated that they would not rule out the possibility of subleasing or parceling the property adjacent. It's 17 acres. I've driven by a fair number of substations recently. I'm aware of them now, I notice them, and there's nothing attractive, environmentally friendly, or good that happens next to a substation. People just don't want to locate there. It's a problem. I know you know this is a problem because you're trying to work it out. One of the things that's been really nice about the school board is that they've really gotten behind us, like put their necks out and risked their own political careers and interests. I understand Duke Energy is powerful. They're like the railroad. I've heard it all. I've heard everybody say this. But they have a problem with environmental stewardship in our state, a big problem. And I think that it would be helpful for us as working moms and dads who do this. I mean, Deanna drives all over the state. You don't know how hard she works, and she spends all her time on the phone trying to advocate for this on top of, and she is exhausted. We're all exhausted. It's not our jobs. And we ask for your leadership and support in a really strong way so that we can help protect this school. I agree with Katie that we are opening Pandora's box. I used to run Hanger Hall, and you saw how, and there were schools I wouldn't have sent my kids to as an educated parents 10 years ago. And now I would be happy if they were at any school in our magnet system. And I'm proud to say that. And the city's done a great job of building those schools up. Having this happen to Isaac Dixon would truly create a vacuum of one. There would be one school, the educated parents, whether or not Duke says, you know, it's not a problem or not, they would not want to send their kids to. That's going to cause problems. Thank you.
Rustin Adcock, and then Christine Aiken. Maggie, when that light turns to orange, how much time is left? 15 seconds. 15 seconds, okay.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the City Council. My name is Rustin Adcock. I'm a family practice physician with Asheville Family Health and father of 3 children, as my wife Sarah just mentioned, 2 of whom are at Asheville or at Isaac Dixon currently, and the 3rd little girl is on her way there. So as a father and a Montford resident, I'm deeply concerned about Duke Energy's plan to build this electrical substation right next to our new school. Apart from the irony of building a large electrical substation next to the first LED certified school in the state, I'm concerned, as are Calvin and Sarah and the rest of us here, about the health risks. And I want to give just a little bit more background on that, and I'll try not to repeat what Calvin already said. The concerns about the health risks of EMS have been around since the 1970s, and there are over 200 studies now that have looked at this. So there's a lot of data to go through. This being said, there's been a consistent association with EMF exposure and childhood leukemia, and the WHO, as Sarah mentioned, came out and looked at all the trials and said that for high exposures, there's a 2-fold increased risk, that's twice the risk of childhood leukemias for EMF exposures. So we're going to expose our most vulnerable population for 7 hours a day, 5 days a week, 9 months out of the year for 6 years to a possible carcinogen that may increase their risk of childhood leukemia 2-fold. To be fair, other studies haven't really shown this association. However, any risk is too great a risk for our children. So it's my hope that the City Council will hear our concerns tonight, take action. I'd like to see the City Council take up this issue and work with us and Duke Energy to find a safer, more appropriate place for this substation. I truly hope that we can all come together and create a solution that's the best for our children and the best for our community. Thanks.
Can I ask a question? One of the benefits of tonight is that we're getting more perspective and information, and the research you've done about the EMFs, what is the relationship between proximity and risk from a source? I mean, have you got a perspective on that you can share?
Yeah, I do. That's a good question. I mean, the substation's going to be 200 feet from our school, and the risk declines precipitously with distance. So as you get further and further away from these substations, there's less and less risk. That's correct. Our question, and one question, it's going to be looked at this next week, is how much EMF exposure really comes from these substations. And we're going to go around with an electrical engineer and measure that independently and see what we come up with. So Duke hasn't really given us a clear answer. We know that exposures of 0.4 microteslas are enough to increase this 2-fold risk in childhood leukemias.
Thanks for that. And this was something we promoted at our meeting last Friday or Thursday, that there needs to be more clarity about distance between the school and the substation, and there needs to be testing that the school board is comfortable is reliable and accurate in terms of strength of the electromagnetic field. That's something that Gwen and Esther and I felt really strongly about, and we're insistent about along with the school board.
We hope you use your political capital to help Duke, to make sure that Duke Energy provides us with those answers. Those are the important questions, and we really need to know that risk specifically.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Christine Aiken was next, and then after that, Valeria Wida. I'm probably saying that wrong, sorry.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, and council members. I wanted to just take a moment to thank you for taking the time to respond to me and to the other parents. For those of us who have written to you, we know that you don't have a lot of power in this situation, so I wanted to say thank you for getting behind the parents and for looking out for our children and really supporting us in this issue. Anything that you can do, if there's any guidance that you can provide to us, I know that a lot of this is preempted and you don't have control to zone them out, but if you can provide us with any place else that we can possibly go, I know as a parent I would really truly appreciate that, rather than just continuing to badger you all with the same issues. We all know that it's dangerous and it's not healthy for our children, but what can we do as parents? I think that's really my request, and thank you.
And the next would be Holly Kirschbaum.
Hi, my name is Valeria Waida. I'm a mom of a first grader and a soon coming baby, hopefully in Isaac Dixon School. I'm also a resident of Montford. And the reason why I moved to Montford is because I wanted my kids to go to Isaac Dixon. I'll be one of the first ones to take my kids out of the school if there's a substation there. I'm also a real estate agent, and I've been spending day and night looking for additional property. And what we hear is that we only have until May 15th to find an additional property for them, and I think that's really unfair. We were blindsided. This is something that you guys probably saw coming before last week or last month, and we're willing. Many of us are working trying to find property, and we need more time. We cannot get a deadline in 2 weeks to find property for a substation for Duke Energy. Also, I saw the circle area that Duke proposed for the site for a new substation, and there's no way we can find a better site. Seriously, it's a great, huge site what they bought. We need more time to find a different site, and we need a better, more flexible area to find property. There's a property owned by the city of Asheville on Choctaw and South French Broad. Yes, it is near a residential area, but it's a very large property that if we had the flexibility, maybe the city could chip in and say, we own additional property. So that's all. Thank you so much.
I think this housing South French Road.
I know we have a park on it. We have the park on
Is
it.
Good evening. Hi, Mayor, City Council members. I'd like to start off.
Please state your. Yeah.
My name is Holly Kirschbaum. Hi, Gordon. We spoke via email and over the phone briefly. I'm a Dixon parent as well as a Montford resident. I grew up in Montford. I went to Randolph School, Isaac Dixon as well. But I'm also a homeowner in the South Slope. I live on South Grove Street. On a home on South Grove Street, and it is within 200 feet of the proposed substation on Hilliard and Ashland Avenue. So I'm here representing residents and business owners in the South Slope. Let's see, sorry. It's growing rapidly. We all know that. It's become a really a fast-growing destination for tourists. There's lots of breweries, restaurants. It's an extension of downtown. And the thought of putting an electric substation right in the heart of that just seems wrong in so many ways, and especially right on top of my home. Within earshot, eyeshot, I mean, it's just right on top of my home. So, also, I've been speaking with some other business owners that are concerned. I don't know if they showed up. Let's see. I guess I have a few questions. I was told that the Biltmore location has been overturned because of subsidized housing being close to it. Is that accurate? What happened there?
There's no resolution yet. It's a similar situation.
We're aware that Duke is still in the market for other property. The Dixon location wasn't their first choice.
Yeah, all I know is that they have purchased the site.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in terms of, I do know that part.
Okay. I guess. Do you know how close it needs to be to power the needs of downtown, as far as one Dixon parents or anybody else that's looking for property, commercial realtors, how close does it need to be to power downtown, this property that they may be looking for?
I think the last speaker that just spoke might be helpful. It sounds like she's seen the maps that they they have these maps with these big circles on them where they say they need to locate the substation.
Thank you.
The next speaker I have signed up to speak is Livia. One word, one name here. It looks to be a younger person. Yes, there you are. Can somebody help Livia with the microphone? Yes, thank you. And then next would be Lisa Harkema.
I think it would be dangerous for all of the children to be around a substation all day. I do not want a substation next to our school.
Thank you. So we have some new equipment in here, and I apologize, Livia, that our new screen precludes us from seeing you directly. Or we need a, Maggie, I think we need a, like a box or something to stand on.
So my name is Lisa Harkema, and everybody here has already done a great job of saying what I needed to say. So I just want to say, this is my son. He's a beautiful child. And I chose Dixon because it is the school that he needs to be at. It's an experiential school. That's their model. That's what he needs. He's an active, physical little boy. And unfortunately, if the substation is there, I'm going to have to move him to another school. And that breaks my heart. And it's not good for him. It's not good for any of the kids who go to Dixon. And so I'm just begging you to do what you can to help prevent this from happening. Thank you.
Sandra Whitlock. And then I have Calvin Tompkins. And that's the last of this. No Sandra Whitlock? How about Calvin Tompkins? Oh, sorry. Okay. Normally we don't offer that opportunity in the public comment period, but
It might be helpful.
is it, yes, but we're just not even doing things like we normally do anyway right now. So why the hell not?
While I think it's laudable to try to measure the local substations and the exposure to electromagnetic fields, I would like to point out that we've been trying to measure this as a scientific community for the last several decades, and we're still at inconclusive evidence. And so I'm pretty sure that the results of those measurements and efforts will likely be also inconclusive, and we will still be left with the current classification that electromagnetic fields are a possible carcinogen, and that we need to act on that information.
Well, and just a point of clarification, I think what we were talking about was the actual EMF output measurement, not a conclusion one way or another about can we absolutely know the health risks and the proximity. But I think Pam Baldwin was going to have an opportunity to meet with Duke and whoever else, if an independent party would be better to help. I'm not even sure what the things are called that measure EMF output and go around and satisfy herself so she understands what the output is from the different substation sites that are in existence in the city.
I think that makes sense. It's just with my survey of the research, just trying to classify and quantify exposures is extremely difficult.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. We can't know for sure the level that's acceptable or not. Yeah, that's a second issue. Yeah. I don't have anyone else signed up to speak, but this is an opportunity. If there's anyone who has not yet spoken and not yet yielded their time, please. I have 2 back here. Anybody else? I have 3, 4, 5. Anyone else? Okay. Since the 2 in the back, raise your hand first. Yes, ma'am. Why don't we start with you?
I'm Carol Paulsgrove. I'm a tutor and volunteer at Isaac Dixon. I have a question. I sent a legal analysis to Mark Hunt that suggested you do have some power over zoning if it's a particular kind of substation. And I wondered if you'd investigated to see Yes, could you answer that?
Yes, ma'am, and thank you for the exchange. And you referenced some research by a parent who is also an attorney, I believe.
It's right there. See, there he is.
Mr.
Agan.
Agan, thank you. There's been exploration, there was research prior to your letter done by our legal staff. There's been significant more. It is more complicated than even I thought. These legal things are always complicated. It's more complicated than I would have imagined. It's certainly more complicated than we should try to untangle tonight. The net conclusion is that our city attorney, Robin Curran, and our zoning administrator, Shannon Tuck, believe that the city does not have zoning power authority to preempt this station going in at that site. Now, trust me that there's been hours of legal research in the past 2 days on this, and you've got a city council that is eager to find ways to intervene. But if we could leave it at this, if you would be willing tomorrow or sometime soon, Steve, to be in touch with Robin and just kind of discuss that, that would be my preference.
Share what you find with us. We are working parents and have limited time aside from our work to do this.
Okay.
Yeah, can we prepare a little document and share it with them or something, Robin?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Can we officially conclude that our new air conditioning system is not working? Can we just, all right, I'm just. Okay. It's brand new, brand new. Gentleman in the back. Yeah, yeah.
You feel better, don't you?
Hello, my name is James Shaw. Thank you guys for taking a little additional time to allow additional speakers. Obviously, there's a lot to consider about the health risks. I want to speak to a little different angle. I appreciate all you guys do for the city. I really like the work that you do. And one of the responsibilities or concerns you have is the image of Asheville. And the new Dixon School has been rightfully held up as, new and beautiful and green, and I'm really excited about it. When we drive by, my two boys who go to the current Dixon School, we look at it and they're excited to go to the new one. If the substation goes on this site, I know there are families, several people have said, who have the means, who pull their children out of the school, probably out of the city school system in total. And that could lead to a disproportional amount of lower income students who are disproportionately minorities being at the new Dixon School, and leading to those minority students bearing the brunt of the effects of the substation. Our school is named after Isaac Dixon. He's a champion of minorities and public schooling. And I think this would be sadly ironic if, this bastion of new technology and public education and really the spirit of Asheville is literally towered over by the infrastructure of old technology and clouds of potential environmental racism. So again, I just thank you for the additional time to say that.
All right, I had a couple more folks in here. I see the hand, yes. You guys you want to do it together? Do you want to, that's fine. There we go. Now we got our kid system down.
Hello, I'm Charlotte Wilkerson.
And I'm Zeta Bloomfield.
And we have been at Dixon since kindergarten.
We are now in 4th grade. When we heard that they were rebuilding, we were very excited.
But a few weeks ago, we heard that Duke was building a substation next to our new school.
In case you didn't know, EMFs, electromagnetic fields, can cause sicknesses such as leukemia, which is the most occurring cancer in kids.
Also, they're putting it right in the middle of Montfort, and if we haven't made our point clear enough,
we both have younger siblings that will go there.
This could affect your children and our teachers. Say no to substation and keep our schools green and safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep, back here.
Please, can you not build a substation next to our school?
And I had a quick question for council.
Can you both say your names?
This is River Harlan. I'm Will Harlan. Can the existing substation infrastructure be upgraded rather than building new substations?
That's a good question, and I have asked the same question of Duke along with the folks up here. What they tell us is that they haven't built a substation in downtown Asheville since 1976. You probably know it. It sits behind the U.S. Cellular Center. And that since 1976, a lot's changed in Asheville, and there's a need.
That site right behind the Cellular Center, which is the reason they say it
Yeah.
needs upgrading, there's ample space around it also with parking that they could potentially expand.
We asked them about increasing the capacity on that site, and they tell us it's reached its limit. They do bring electrical engineers to these frequent meetings that we have with them, and that's all I can go on. I'm but a measly lawyer, so I don't know myself, but that's what they represent to us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, did we, okay, no.
I know you folks are ready to go home.
Don't worry, we have more. We got it.
Okay.
We got it.
We've got a ways to go.
My name is Pepe Acebo. I am a parent of a first grader named Livia at Isaac Dixon Elementary. As you can expect, I'm not going to keep my kid there if the substation is built, and I will fight with whatever means are legal and safe, to keep that substation from being built. I am able to, and some of us are able to work through the Duke establishment and through other avenues to get Duke to change its decisions and to have pressure coming from the other direction. But what I need from you, Mayor, is a letter saying that it's an inappropriate location for a substation. I know that you don't have the legal ability to stop it. If council were to say as a unified voice, we believe that this is an inappropriate location for a substation that is larger than 2 football fields and is supposed to serve a great portion of the downtown area, if you are able to make that statement that you think is inappropriate right next to our solar, green built, LEED certified, $23 million shining star new elementary school, or if you're able to say that you don't think it's appropriate because there's 500 children there and we don't know the effects, or whatever you can see in your minds that would make that an inappropriate location, it would benefit us if you can simply say, we think this is an inappropriate location. And please work with us, Duke Energy, so that we can find a more appropriate location. And that's what I'm asking of you and of all of you.
All right, is there anyone else? I didn't see any other hands, I don't think. Okay, we're gonna end this public comment period dedicated to this issue. I think there may be some council members that want to have an opportunity to say some things to you all. I will add that on Friday, I had an opportunity, along with a couple other council members, to meet with the president of Duke Energy, the CEO and president of Duke Energy, Lynn Good, who is over the entire company, over multiple states. And she came to Asheville, and we had some county commissioner representatives there as well. And we addressed several concerns that our community is. Maggie, that's going to buzz in just a second. It's fine. I just buzzed twice. We have an ongoing dialogue with Duke about their coal ash reserves, or whatever you want to call it, ponds that they have down at their coal ash plant on Long Shoals, and we have been diligent over the years to provide them with communication about our concern about that. Tonight, you'll see next on our agenda, we're going to vote to authorize me to send a letter to the WNC Regional Air Quality Board because we're concerned about their SO2 emissions at that plant. So this is a continuing concern of ours in our community. We do use power, obviously, so this is, not something that's just going to go away. But we were able to communicate to the president that this is another concern of ours, and I can't express enough how much we are pushing and hoping and doing what we can to help Duke find another solution to this issue. Obviously, it is not ideal to site a substation next to a school when you have a community that's ready to pull their kids out of that school. So it's my hope. I'm going to continue to work on it myself to see if there can be a solution. I'm not going to sit up here and promise you that I can absolutely do it tomorrow, because I can't unilaterally, the city can't unilaterally, this council can't unilaterally make that happen. But we can play our part to try to find a resolution to the issue. I think, did you want to add something, Gwen?
Well, it was, Robin Curran just suggested or asked, has a group of parents reached out to the North Carolina Utilities Commission? Because apparently they often, or that commission will negotiate or mitigate or, work with citizen groups and the utility. So just another suggestion that you may want to pursue.
Yeah.
I would observe that if Duke were looking to blacken their own eyes in any way in the public view, they couldn't do worse than to put a new substation next to a LEED certified net zero school that's being built. It almost looks to me like it's an intentional slap in the face, although I know there's been a big property search. We might do something as a council. The idea of a letter might float here. I don't know. I haven't polled the council. I'm certainly standing up against it, but I think probably the biggest weapon you have to help get them to stop is publicity. They've been suffering with their coal ash plants leaking into rivers across this state. They have a very, very bad environmental image, and the stories you've been telling tonight will not play well in the news. And I would keep doing that and keep doing that and keep doing that through every avenue you have, whether it's on Facebook, Twitter, with the TV station, with the newspaper. Remind people that Duke has been an absolutely awful neighbor environmentally, and they're proving it once again. It's ironic to me that in the same couple of weeks that Bloomberg pointed out that solar is now cheaper than coal, gas, or oil for energy generation, that this issue came up. I really applaud all of you who are standing up about this, all of you who have emailed me and us, and keep going. I think it can be won. I don't think they can stand the bad publicity.
Well, thank you all for coming this evening. It looks like we're, for now, concluding this just so we can finish our agenda. I know we have at least 2 people here maybe for the next couple of items. So thank you for coming down. I know it's late, kids go to bed, and parents, thank you very much.
It's hotter than
Time for a close session.
But you don't want.
Well, it might get better now, Yeah. It might get better once they.
What do you want to do?
Right.
Go ahead and just do the closed session.
Let me just tell you that, you know what Mayor Manheimer said to me earlier today when I complained about it being hot? She said, you're.
Blow through it, ask her, it's fine with me.
And so the next time, she says, so.
Go, okay. Okay, we're, the next item on the, you'll just continue to, we're just going to keep going. Okay, so the next item is the motion authorizing the mayor to sign a letter to the WNC Regional Air Quality Board to strengthen the permit limit for sulfur dioxide to protect our community from the impacts of harmful air pollution. Do I have...
Having read the letter ahead of time, reading the documents for the meeting, I would move to approve the letter that's proposed for the mayor to sign.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Okay, I have a motion and a second. Here was the motion, second was Gwen. Is there anyone wishing to speak ever so briefly on this motion? You've probably lost 10 pounds sitting there.
Mayor and members of council, thanks for allowing me to speak this evening. And I'm Emma Greenbaum. I'm the North Carolina representative, organizing representative for the Beyond Coal campaign. And tonight I'm here representing the Asheville Beyond Coal campaign and all of our supporters. And we wanted to thank you for this letter to the Western North Carolina Air Quality Agency asking for a more protective limit for sulfur dioxide pollution coming from the Asheville coal plant in their Title V permit. So as you know, expert analysis shows that for years, the Asheville coal plant has caused unsafe levels of sulfur dioxide pollution in neighborhoods and recreational areas around Asheville and Buncombe County. To be a little more specific, the plant has caused SO2 pollution levels as much as 3.5 times above the federal minimum health standards, about 1 out of every 2 to 3 days since 2010. Even short exposures to sulfur dioxide can cause respiratory distress, such as asthma attacks. It can be especially problematic for those who suffer from respiratory illness. This is a serious concern for those directly impacted and our community as a whole. Despite the evidence that the public is being put in harm's way, the Western North Carolina Air Quality Agency has released a draft permit with the same inadequate emission limits that the coal plant has had for years. A coal plant without any pollution controls or scrubbers could meet the emissions limit set for sulfur dioxide in the current draft permit. It is simply too high. The Western North Carolina Air Quality Agency and board has both the authority and the responsibility to write a more protective permit that ensures that concentrations of this harmful pollutant downwind of the plant do not exceed federal minimum health-based standards. This is a particularly timely directive ahead of the public hearing for this permit happening tomorrow. It's Wednesday, the 29th at 6 p.m. at Irwin High School. I hope some of you can make it. And thank you again for encouraging them to do right by our community and protect our access to safe, clean air to breathe.
Thank you. All right, anyone else wishing to comment on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, next, resolution amending resolution number 6-55 regarding the city's policy relating to claims and judgments sought or entered against city officers and employees. And Robin, are you handling this one?
I am
Yes,
handling
you're
this
yes.
one. Just briefly, our office has been going sort of systematically through a number of city policies. This is one that has been in effect since 2006 and relates to the city's procedures for defending, paying, or settling claims against city employees within the scope of employment. It's based and allowed because of a statute which we've cited, 168, 167. We basically went through, cleaned it up, made sure that the procedures were clear, gave council the authority, all of the authority that we believe they need and are allowed to have under the statute. RISC has an outside counsel that they send these types of policies to from an insurance perspective to make sure that they are acceptable. We have done that. I would just recommend that you approve it so that we can have the best policy in place as we possibly can.
Questions, motion?
I move we take our attorney's advice.
We have a motion.
Second.
We have
And
a motion
approve the amendment to the, to the resolution, yeah.
Anyone wishing to speak on the motion? Okay, seeing none, you want to speak on this motion?
You want to speak?
You, go ahead.
I just want to say I really appreciate the city attorney working on this. We took a look at this recently, and she folded in a very busy schedule. We appreciate very much her focus on it, and it's a much improved document.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and I already asked if anyone wants to speak on it. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. Item C.
That was good.
It's our closed session, like.
Mayor, item C is a matter relating to appointment to the Hub Economic Development Alliance Board. There were two recent resignations. Both of the terms of those two slots that are now open end August 22nd, 2015. So whoever we appoint tonight will have the ability to serve at least until then, but they will certainly be eligible for reappointment. At that time, we would have another, I'm sorry, am I misstating?
No, what I thought we would do is appoint them till August 15 and then for a full 3-year term.
Great idea, Maggie. I'm sorry, I may not have.
No, that I was just thinking of today, and so I.
Oh, okay, great. That is an awesome idea. So, council, we understand we're appointing for a full term plus about 4 months here. The candidates that had applied: Adrian Vasallo, Kendra Pendleton, Ted Figueroa Jr., Hunter Guzman, Ed Manning. We will start, how about it, this end, this time?
You're going to do that.
And we'll name two, and we'll go through, and when any single candidate has 4 votes, that person will be appointed. And we'll continue all the way down the line until we have everybody counted.
Okay, well, we had a great group of people, and this one's hard. But I would say Adrian Vasallo and Kendra Penland.
Vasallo and Penland.
Penland and Gooseman?
Vasallo and Guzman.
Vasallo and Penland.
Vasallo and Penland.
If you
Yeah,
do
we-
right there, you've got your 2 right there, Vasallo and Penland, unless you want to continue on.
Then Gordon does.
Gordon doesn't get to vote.
Unless there's going to be a tie or something, or do you just stop right there?
But all council members are required to vote.
It is conceivable that you could have a tie.
Okay, Gina?
Adrian Vasallo and Kendra Penland. You do it.
No.
Well, it wouldn't, it's not going to get there without you.
They're-
Hunter Guzman and Ted Figueroa.
So it's, I mean, as Maggie indicated, Vasallo and Penland.
It is. And they each received 5 votes.
Okay, that concludes our agenda. Thanks everyone who's still here. You're real troopers. So now is the public comment portion. If there's anyone left who would like to provide public comment? No, I'm not worried about that.
Okay,
we have
since you've stayed this long, you should listen to the closed session motion. I move that the Asheville City Council go into closed session for the following reasons. 1, to prevent disclosure of information that's privileged and confidential pursuant to the laws of North Carolina, or not considered a public record within the meaning of Chapter 132 of the general statutes. The law that makes the information privileged and confidential is North Carolina General Statute 143-318.103. The statutory authorization is contained in North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A1. 2, to establish or to instruct the city staff or negotiating agents concerning the position to be taken by or on behalf of the city in negotiating the terms of a contract for the acquisition of real property by purchase, option, exchange, or lease. The statutory authorization is contained in North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A5.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And we will adjourn from the closed session.